So I haven't touched the hands. I haven't done the finger pass. You can see that the fingers and the hand don't really stay on the cheek, or sorry, on the chin anymore. The reason I haven't done that is because I'm interacting with the face so much, and it kind of has to follow the face. As I'm animating the jaw, and I'm going to be adding kind of a squash layer on top of this, any adjustments I make to that face is going to affect the hand, which means I'm going to have to redo any animation on there anyway. So as I'm going into the polish, refining phases here, part of that is watching what will affect another part and making sure that you're not doing work for nothing. This is something I used to do all the time when I was a student and when I was younger, where I would start animating something and I would try to polish, for example, the hand, get it all perfect and nice, and then I'd go to the face, start working on that, and ruin everything I did on the hand, which would mean that I would have two choices. I either have to redo the hand, which sucks, or I would have to leave the face as kind of a little bit more boring so I don't have to redo the hand. Neither of which are a good scenario. You're either limiting your animation or you're losing a whole bunch of work. So, part of properly refining and polishing a shot is kind of putting certain things aside if you have to and not worrying about them. Don't let them just be a horrible mess. Like you can see the hand works, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to kind of go, oh, well, I have to polish this. It has to be done before everything else. And sometimes that, depending on what you're animating, it could be a really large part of the character. And that's okay. So today we're going to be kind of trying to push the extra details that we can in here, fix certain little things, and just kind of refine and polish. For me, a lot of people have the refining phase and the polish phase. As soon as I go into splines, all three of those kind of mix together for me. Not that I'm just doing whatever, whenever, but I'm not afraid of going back and forth. So I'll go into the polish phase and I'll go back into the spline on certain areas and kind of, it's more fluid. And I personally like that because it keeps me from kind of getting locked into, well, I'm polish and that's all I'm doing. No big changes anymore. Now, with all of that said, if you're working in a studio and you have to get your shot done at a certain deadline, you kind of just have to go through and you can't reblock a whole thing whenever. But if you're working on your own shot or if you have the time, never a bad thing. Now, did I see the Raya and the Last Dragon trailer? Yes, it's so good. I'm so excited for that film. That little, I don't want to say any spoilers, but the little armadillo creature, it's not a spoiler. It's so cute. If you guys haven't checked it out, I highly recommend just go on YouTube, watch the Raya trailer. It is adorable. And hello, Blaze. Hello, Speedo. Sauerkraut. Colo. Little Danny. So, with that, the first thing when we're working on this is something I mentioned before, making a list of everything you need to fix. So last time we were talking about the shot here, I had made a list. I was just going through, drawing over all the different body parts and, oh, I've got to fix this, I've got to fix that. Whenever you are about to start animating, it's always good to have a list to start with. Don't just jump in and, well, I've got to animate today. Boop. Let's see what I can do. Not that that's a terrible thing, but it leaves you without a plan, and it starts to get into that noodling, where you're just going to be sitting on one part or certain parts of the animation and just trying to fix it, but you don't have an end goal, so you don't know when to stop, and you don't know when to move on to something else, or you don't know what to move on to next. So, before I even started streaming here, before the stream started, I was actually just going through here and writing a list of everything I wanted to do on this shot, at least basically. So this is the list that I did. And what I did was I just wrote it down. Everything that I noticed, okay, write it down, put all of those in. Once I have the list in there, I number them like we were talking about last time so that I know which one I need to fix first. Part of that is so that I don't end up redoing work. So for example, I put eye darts first before facial connection. You can see facial connection is actually 5th. The reason why is because if I have eye darts in there, well, I need to connect the eyelids to the eye darts. That's part of facial connection. If I do the facial connection first, then the eye darts, I have to go back to facial connection and try to reconnect those the eyelids to the eye darts. I'd rather just do it all at once. I want to add a little bit of a mouth lower on a certain section. So I just wrote all of this down. And you can see some of it's pretty vague, like facial connection. That includes so many things: the cheek, the ears, the brows, the head, the squash and stretch, the corners of the mouth. There's so many things that go into that. But I know that's a whole process that I can work on as a whole. Now you might notice that I've also I have letters here. This is something I'll usually do if I have kind of 2 stages that I need to work on. So for example, all the numbers are kind of the polishy things. Those are like fixing the face. There's a little shoulder hitch at one part. I want to add a little bit of breath, all of that kind of stuff. The A and B, that's all the hand stuff, which don't really connect to everything else on my list. And they're kind of a larger project. So I would much rather get through everything else first and then have the hands separate. And I number them so I know that they're separate. And I can kind of compartmentalize them a little bit more. So this is my typical process. Now, normally when I'm doing this, I'd also write in depth how I would try to solve this. So just going a little bit more in detail. So for example, for a hand pass, that means offsetting the fingers, trying to build in better shapes, creating a connection whenever the hands are touching things, making sure they move in arcs. There's a whole bunch of things, and I kind of number those as well. So I'd maybe do the arcs first, then the fingers, then so on and so forth. This keeps me on track. For this, I just kept it pretty vague because it just takes a little bit more time, and it's simple enough for this shot that I don't have to worry about it. But this is something I do with every shot, all the time, and it really, really helps. I put a video on your Discord feedback request, and I would love that you check it and give your opinions. Oh, if we have time, I'd definitely be happy to take a look at it. And yes, I saw the classic animation with the Animaniacs. It's so good. I actually know the character designer, Genevieve Tsai. She is so good. She's such an awesome person too. I'm so glad that she was able to get to work on that and do so many awesome designs. I love her work and just the way she came up with these new redesigns. They're so close to the classics, but they just feel fresh and new and interesting. And then let's see, there's a question here. Should I be a good actor to achieve a solid acting performance? You don't have to be. It helps, but you don't have to be. As long as you can study good performance, and for example, if you're in your reference, you're trying to do an acting shot, but you can't kind of act it out properly, you would need to look at other references of performances that are similar to what you want to achieve and kind of mix in those elements. So it's a back and forth. You're shooting your own reference, but you're not just using that alone. You're building in other elements. See, just to ask, what do the numbers mean? Just like I was saying earlier, all the numbers mean just those are the order that I'm going to be doing these. So I number all of these so I know which one to do first, which one to do last. And this just keeps me on track so I'm not bouncing around in a weird way or redoing work. So that's going to be the plan for today. We'll see how far we get. A and B, the letters are just to indicate a separate pass. So I'm going to try to do all the numbers first, and then I have the hand pass later because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it. It's also a bigger project, so I usually label different things with either letters or numbers to indicate different kind of passes. That's just my workflow. If you just prefer numbers or letters or whatever works best for you. So we'll see how far we get. I'm assuming, just based on the demo process, I'm hoping we at least get through to maybe at least 6. I would love to get through all the numbers. The main thing that's going to be a little time consuming is the facial connection. That can be, it's not long and it's not tricky, but there's just so much we can do. It can take a lot of time and really refining those in. The other thing that can take a little bit of time is going to be the breathing. Honestly, it shouldn't take too long, but breaths are so subtle that it can be very tricky to get them to feel natural. So I might end up spending a little bit more time on that, just trying to get that to feel interesting and good. So we've got 2 breaths that we're probably going to be working on here. So we'll see how far we get. I would love to get to all of it, but there's no, at least for me, there's no stress, no deadline, so I can take my time and get it the way I want it to be. So, looking at the list here, the first thing we have is eye darts. Now, eye darts are going to be very important when you're dealing with any animation, really, if you have eyes on your rig, because eye darts are the way we look at the world. Our eyes don't just hit something and then lock off. They just don't. As we're looking at anything, our eyes are constantly shifting. Not like constantly as in just darting around like this, but you'll look at something and it'll pop, and then hold, and then pop. And we can continue to have these little tiny changes to keep our focus and to look at things. And when we're looking at specific things, our eyes tend to dart in specific ways. So for example, when you're looking at someone's face, it's usually eye, mouth. So it's an upside down triangle. It's the way we look at people's faces. So if you kind of understand the way eye darts work in certain areas, you can kind of make them feel more realistic. If you close the MP player, you lose all the notes? No. So if I close it right now, I would. But if I go to File and then Save Project, I would save all of these notes. So you can save all of your draw overs in here. You can even export it out, I believe. Yeah, export the notes, and then I believe you can even import them into Maya, which is really cool. I haven't done that myself personally, but yeah, you could do draw overs and then have them into Maya. It's really nice. I believe that's only with the Pro version though. I can finally switch to pen tab and it's so much better. I'm loving it. Yay! That's awesome! Would you recommend exaggerating eye darts in the animation versus the video reference? Yeah. It really depends on the shot. Sometimes you'll want it less. So for example, it all depends on how close the camera is to the action. So if I'm shooting my reference and my reference is from here, let's say, but in my shot, it's actually going to be a really big close-up like this on my character. I could minimize the eye darts. So I would exaggerate them, but I would exaggerate them smaller. Exaggeration doesn't just go big, it can go small. So I could make them smaller so that it doesn't look like the character is just swinging his eyes all around. But in this case, because my shot is actually from here, I'm probably going to be trying to make my eye darts bigger than they should be, naturally. So that way the audience can register that the eyes are moving. If I kept them too small, from this distance, you're most likely not going to see anything. So in this case, I'm going to be focusing on this view, but I'm going to check in every once in a while on this view to make sure that things are looking okay. And this is just kind of on that topic. Whenever you're animating something, it's important to keep in mind what the audience is actually going to be seeing. If you're exaggerating and only exaggerating, making things bigger and bigger and bigger, and just doing that, you can end up with a shot that's just too much. If a shot is closer, or if a shot requires more subtle motion, oftentimes we have to shrink it down. That's not a bad thing. It's still exaggeration, but we're doing it with a purpose. And this is kind of like my philosophy on animation is whenever we're doing something, we're doing it with a purpose. We're not just moving things randomly. We're thinking through why we're moving it. So let's focus on getting some eye darts here. So eye darts are not that tricky. The biggest thing is, one, making them readable, and two, not overdoing them. If you have too many eye darts, it just looks like the characters swinging their eyes all around, and that doesn't help. So let's kind of add one eye dart right in the beginning here. I don't really need one because honestly, this is all we're seeing of the eye, and from the shot camera, it's so small, like probably no one's ever gonna register it, but might as well. It's not that hard to add in. So basically what I'm going to do is I've got my main eye control here, and I'm just going to try to find where I want to add the eye dart. So I don't want it too close to the beginning of the shot because that would not give enough time for the audience to register what's happening. It would just be a random motion too soon. So probably let's kind of have an eye dart before he turns his head. So almost like whatever he heard that caused him to turn his head is also causing his eye to just shift ever so slightly. So I'm going to try to add it maybe right around here as his head comes up. And really all it's going to be is taking this control and then shifting the eyes over just a little bit. And let's actually key that in. So let me undo this. I'll explain my process. So I'm doing an eye dart. Eye darts are very fast. It's just a quick motion of the eye, a slight readjustment. Typically, that's only one frame. Normal eye motion, so if I was to look from all the way right here to all the way left, that would normally take the eye, a change like that, 1 or 2 frames. That's it for a big eye motion from one side all the way to the other. 1 or 2 frames. 3 if you really want to slow it down. 4 if you want to go stylistic. Any more than that, and now it's just too slow for normal motions. So an eye dart is just a quick motion. There's really no reason to ever have it more than 1 frame. If it's a big eye dart, you can get away with 2 frames, but normally 1 is more than enough. So to do this, I'm just going to go to frame 8, set a key, frame 9, set a key, and just dart the eye. And I'm just going to kind of move it down here. I'm looking at this view, seeing if we can get a good angle on that eye. And then we have something like that. Boop. There we go. Now you'll see the eye resets itself. That's because I have to go into my graph editor now and just make sure that those keys that it used to be held on are copied. So I'll just copy that over, and there we go. Now the eye darts, and we get the look. So it's just that. A quick little dart. Now that's maybe a little too big, but I also have to keep in mind this is the view that's most important, right here. So let's actually look at it from here. Yeah, so in there you can see the difference. From this view, the close-up, it looks like it's too big of a motion. It just kind of, it feels a little weird. But from this view, you barely see it. At most, you kind of feel it a little bit. So, there we go. Eye dart, done, yay. We can just keep going with that. So, now the character looks. This is going to be a good point for an eye dart. So he looks over, and if he just kind of stops and freezes and his eyes don't do anything, it doesn't really show a thought process. It's just kind of looking into the middle distance and not focused on anything, just kind of bland. If he's looking at something and trying to analyze the situation, his eyes are going to dart. They're going to look around to see what's going on. So once he opens his eyes here, I need some eye darts in here. If I don't, the situation is just not going to read correctly. So let's do that. Now to do this, I'm just going to try and figure out the timing, because once again, if the eyes open here, so they open up, and then I move the eyes too soon, the audience isn't going to register the eye dart. It'll just look like the eyes are opening and then moving at all. It'll feel like one motion, one big thing. Instead, I need to hold it. So the eyes open, let's say 21. That's a good scene or frame where everything's kind of open. We can register things. It takes the audience about 4 to 6 frames to register something at 24 frames per second. That means that I don't want the eye dart to happen until at least frame 25 or later. Now, I do have this little blink right here showing that he's registering something. So I want it to be in between there somewhere. So I'll probably do it around frame 25. We'll see how that feels. We can always readjust later. It's just 2 keys and then you're done. So it doesn't take too long. But this time, let's do a slightly slower eye dart just to kind of show the difference. So we're going to have the key on frame 25. That's the eyes still. And then on, let's go 27. Let's readjust the eyes. And I can kind of choose where I want the eyes to readjust to. I could either go further screen left, further screen right, down. So maybe he's kind of looking the person up and down. You can do whatever you want, honestly. In this case, I kind of want maybe a little bit more screen left, just because if I go further screen right, the eye in the back is going to start getting lost in the in his head. So he kind of looks over, darts. Let's make sure we can kind of see that here. Not really. And actually, I might do the opposite. So instead of changing the frame after, because I know that ties into everything that I have afterwards, I might change the opening here. The reason being, I want him at the end to be focused on the other character's eyes. As if, like, he's looked at him, and then, oh, he focuses in the eyes, he sees the face. So here, what I can do is kind of bring the eyes down a little bit. It comes through. And then we get the little eye dart upwards as he looks into the person's eyes. So I'm trying to think of what is the character thinking as they're doing this. Now on top of that, I can kind of bring them off to the side slightly, just so that we get a little bit of a diagonal motion and it's not just perfectly kind of linear. Okay, so with that, let's just make sure I get the eyes in position here. So copy that frame right there. And I'm noticing this is overshooting, so I'm going to ease that in. Just a little. Oop, that is not the right control. Something like that. So now he opens his eyes and we get that little dart here. But you'll notice I kept a gap. This is a 2-frame eye dart. So it holds and then we get 1, 2. Normally you don't want to do eye darts like this. So it's a 2-frame eye dart, but the middle frame is right in the middle. So we've got the beginning and the end. And this is just halfway. That's usually not very nice. It looks very boring. And it's not the way our eyes tend to work. Instead, our eyes will ease out imperceptibly. So on a 2-frame dart like this, the first frame is really just going to be a tiny little motion. You can almost think of it like an anticipation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to favor the previous pose just a little. So now we get this. And now we show, thank you so much for the sub. Aw, thank you. 2 months, geez, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And D-Legend, good morning. Hello. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, and Greg, I just saw your question there. What is an eye dart? An eye dart is just us refocusing. It's the eye darting, just jumping, from one point to the next. It's not a full movement where it's like looking over there and then readjusting the whole eye over to another place. It's just a little tiny adjustment. So looking at the eye here, now we get this kind of small, tiny, imperceptible movement. And then, oop, now it goes up. So we just get that tiny little motion in there. And I think I might favor a little bit more translate Y, personally. Just so we can kind of get that, the characters looking up the person. So something like that. And even that's pretty big, but again, I'm trying to think of what's it going to look like from this distance here. So if we look at this, we just get a little bit of an eye dart in there. And even then, that little bit of motion, it kind of feels too much. So I can tone it down a little bit more. Our eye darts are extremely fast, so don't worry about just kind of letting it be fast. At full speed when you're playing through it, you're not going to notice the tiny little, like this, the pop. It'll actually feel better that way. If it's, hey, Sauerkraut, thank you so much for the sub as well. Oh man, thank you. That's so kind of you guys. Thank you so much. I'm trying to keep track of what I was saying so I don't lose it. I'm too easily distracted. Okay, the eye darts, they're actually going to look better if they're faster. The moment you start getting into slow eye darts, oftentimes it just kind of looks dead. It looks like the character is... They don't look like they're thinking. It just looks like he's lacking energy on the dance day. Yeah, it's been a long night. I didn't get too much sleep. Too many projects to get done, unfortunately. But I need to bump up that energy. If I could drink caffeine, I would. Animator that can't drink coffee. Oh, the shame. So there we go. We've got our eye dart. Now the thing with the eye dart is it's not going to look quite right yet because the eyelids are not connected yet. Eye darts move the eyelids. It's just the way our eyes work. So right now we've got the dart, but the eyelid itself isn't there. We're going to add that in later. I want to just make sure I've got my eye darts timed out and working first. See, save as much energy as you need. No, I need that. Do the Mario needs energy. It deserves the energy. So, you don't wake up at 4 in the morning. I don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning, but it doesn't mean I don't stay up till 4 in the morning working on other things, which is not the wisest thing to do. So let's see. We've got an eye dart here. Do you ever step key eye darts, or when it's this quick, it doesn't matter if it's stepped or not? It doesn't matter, honestly, because I tend to key them like one frame and then the next, which is essentially animating in stepped. I know a lot of people who actually just leave the eyes in stepped mode and animate them that way. So everything else is in splines, the eyes stay in stepped mode, that way the eyes only ever move super quick. You could do that, there's really no difference. The main reason I kind of stay in splined is because there are times when, let's say you select all your controls, where you want to kind of just take everything and go into splines for all of it, or you want to change something. And if your eyes are in step mode and you forget about them, which I've done a few times, and you go into splines, suddenly the eyes are just swimming around and it's just kind of weird. Instead, I like to keep it in splines. That way I have kind of full control and I just know I have enough keys to determine everything. And stepped for the darts only, you can do step for the whole thing. Really, the only time it wouldn't be in stepped is when the eyes are tracking something. So if you look at something and track that, so I'm looking at the point here and I follow that, the eyes will tend to move more smoothly. They'll still kind of have a slight step to them, but they're going to be pretty close to smooth. Everything else with the eyes tend to move in step mode. If you ever watch someone reading a book, it's very fascinating because you would assume that the eyes are just kind of going and then back and then and just kind of tracking along, but they don't. If you actually look at someone reading a book, their eyes kind of pop. They look, pop, 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 go back, pop, pop, pop. And not only that, they'll pop back and forth as they go. So it's not just one direction. Sometimes it'll be back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And then to the beginning, it's all over the place. So animating in step mode with the eyes is actually a really simple, or a way of keeping it simpler. For example, like look at this hold right here. Look at all the keys I have. I need those just in case, well, I don't technically need them, but if, for example, I was to delete them and then go, oh, I need to make a change here, I would see that right away. So I need those extra keys. In step mode, you wouldn't need that, because if I need to make a change, and let's say this is in step mode, I'll just undo it after. So step mode, oh, I need an eye dart here. Boop, done. And then it darts back. Yay, that's it. No extra fuss, no extra keys all over the place. It's nice and easy. So, yes, there's no one way better than the other. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever makes it easier for you to animate. Okay, so he opens his eyes here. I kind of want another eye dart right around here somewhere. I'm actually going to use this moment to redirect something. So I was noticing as I was playing my animation that at this point the character feels unfocused. It feels like he's looking in the wrong direction. And part of that is that his eyes are kind of just too low in the socket there. So you can see right here to here, it feels like he readjusts his eyes. And then from here to here, it kind of looks like he starts to look down. So I've got to add an eye dart. Well, why not add it right here? And then I'll fix the in-between. Aha! It's nice when you can find little moments like that. So he opens his eyes. Let's find the moment that he kind of starts to lose focus and use that as a place to create the eye dart. Kind of like right around frame 37. That's where it begins. So I might kind of... Let's set a key on frame 36. And we'll dart the eye here. And what I'm going to do to dart the eye is I'm actually going to go further. Here. Find a position that works. And then match the eye to that position. This way I know that it'll work in the transition. If I do it at the beginning, I'm going to be going back and forth. It'll be kind of a pain. So, let's kind of dart the eye kind of up. Not too high. Don't want him to be looking over. So maybe around there. And then we'll see if this works. It might not. I might have to add an extra eye dart in here, which is not a problem. I don't mind an extra eye dart. So 36, 37, which one was it that I wanted the transition to happen on? 37. So I'm going to take that pose, copy it to frame 37, and see what we get. Okay, yeah. So you can see too high. So I'm going to have two eye darts here. The first one, I'm going to dart his eyes and maybe kind of look a little bit more centered. Let's kind of get that in there. Now it'll kind of be lost in the motion of the character's head. I don't mind that as long as it kind of redirects the eyes properly. That's my main goal. So we get that. Let's hold that out here. And then as he comes up, I could add in another dart right around here somewhere. So let's actually find where it needs to end right there. I think frame 47. And I'm just going to delete the keys in the middle. Like that. So now we've got the eyes refocused there. We get a little dart right here. Perfect. Okay. I could even delete the keys here. If I wanted to start cleaning up my curves, it could be very useful. Just to get rid of all those extra keys. For now, I'm not going to worry too much about that. That's a whole other thing, curve cleanup. And Tish, hey, how's it going? I'm glad it's a learning experience. Hopefully, it's making sense. I know eye darts can be very tricky, especially for people who are just starting out. It can kind of seem a little daunting. Honestly, it's not that tricky. As long as you kind of keep in mind little simple rules of not doing them too fast and making them quick, that's really it. Part of that is also just looking at your reference and keeping in mind that someone who's a little bit more calm and collected will have less eye darts. The more nervous they are, the more eye darts you're going to get. It's kind of like blinks. The more nervous you are, the more you tend to blink. So let's kind of have an eye dart here, and I'm just going to take these keys and move them over. Now we get a little bit of an eye dart right there. And then here, same thing. Take that, bump it over, quick little eye dart. They're going to get lost, but honestly, when you have a character moving, eye darts are not going to register anyway. So now he comes down right there. It would be nice to have another eye dart somewhere around here. Maybe a couple. Right there. And especially at the end here, it would be cool to have some eye darts. Now I'm actually going to work backwards here. The reason being, he's more still at the end. So I want that, or I know that that's going to read better with the eye darts. So I can put my important eye darts here. When I get back to the motion, I can try to find a place to put them. So in this case, I want at least one more eye dart before the end of the shot. Again, you have to keep in mind that the audience will only register motion and a change if it happens within 4 or 6 frames. So I can't put this like on frame 72 and then my shot ends on frame 74. No one's going to register that eye dart. It'll be lost to time and space. The only time they'll see it is if they frame through. So let's kind of put that, maybe we'll go 67. That seems like a good spot. Or let's go, yeah, 67 to 68. So I'm just going to take my keys, retime them. Okay. And let's add in that dart. So how do I want it to end here? Comes through. At this point, he's probably looking at the other person's face. So I want to do that upside down triangle. It's going to get the feeling that the character is actually looking and talking to the person. So let's actually raise the eyes up a little bit. At the end, I want it to look like he's focused at the eye, not the mouth. So I'll raise the eye up just a little bit and kind of adjust it ever so slightly to the right. Just a little. Copy that. Okay. So we get our eye dart right here. And let me make sure I copy that correctly. Okay, good. So we get our dart right there. Now this would be him looking at the mouth. It's a little lower. So let's go back a little bit. Maybe, so this is 67. Let's go to frame 60. Set a key there. Just get rid of this one. So you can see how I'm essentially working kind of in a stepped fashion, where I've just got 2 key moments. 1 key, and then it switches over, and that's the dart. This is essentially like working in stepped. You're just doing it within splines. I'm just going to take frame 67. That's the looking down at the mouth. Copy that to 61. And there we go. We've got a dart right there. Now here I can just adjust that position maybe a little higher, so we can kind of register that dart a little bit more. Maybe it's going to come over and maybe down just a little bit, like so. So we get that tiny little eye dart, then it darts back up. Now that might be a little too low. And MLP, thank you so much. Gotta get the energy back. This is my one time to build up energy so I don't just fall into a slumber on the streams. Thank you so much for the subscription. Man, 6 months. Jeez, half a year. I love that emote. That's awesome. Anything Mario. I love it so much. Okay, let's see. So, yeah, I feel like this is just a little too low. He doesn't look like he's looking at the face. He's starting to look down at the chest, or like he's just kind of slipping away, which feels a little odd. So let's just bring that down. So we just get that a little bit of a eye dart right there. Just boop. There. Now, again, keep in mind, we might end up exaggerating it. We'll see. It'll all depend on the other shot. But at least we're marking down where those changes are going to be. And then here, we could probably add another eye dart. But the main issue here is any eye dart we're going to put in is going to get lost in that transition. Like even here, where he comes to almost a stop, we're losing the eye dart right there. So I'm not too huge on maintaining that. We'll see. Okay. If anything, I might just make sure that those eyes stay higher, or right about there. Okay. So he looks down, maybe a little too low. He's looking right, and then here it needs to go further that way. Okay. There we go. Eye darts. Now, again, keep in mind, these will change depending on the shot. So for a character who's kind of a little bit more nervous, the eye darts are going to be wider because they're focusing on kind of a whole room. Your eyes might dart. So for example, if I'm looking down at my desk, it might dart from the keyboard to my tablet, to my microphone, to my monitor. Those are still eye darts, but you can see how that would be much bigger changes, especially kind of going down from my desk up to my camera. That change is going to be pretty big. He's looking at a zone this size, a face. So the eye darts are going to be much smaller. Eye darts are huge and varied. There's no kind of universal, oh, you just have to move them like 5 pixels or so much. It really depends on your scene, so just be careful with them. With that said, they really don't move that much. So again, it's the just 2 frames, hold, and then that's it. So you get a little dart, and then a little dart, a little dart. And you can see how in the graph editor, it's starting to become easier to see where those darts are happening. So let's actually do a little bit of curve cleanup here, so we can just get those darts a little bit more visible. So there's a hold here. This is my, was this my 2-frame dart? No. My 2-frame dart was right here. So it goes there, holds. Now you'll notice that it's actually not holding properly when I look at all of my curves. The reason being, on this rig, the rotations are constrained. It keeps the orientation of the eyes correct. What that also does is it makes it so the curves look really weird and wonky. So as I'm looking at this, I'm only looking at the translates. We've got that. This is a hold at the beginning. Let's get rid of that. This is a hold, get rid of that. And then here, we've got this transition. This is when the eyes are closed. So I don't care what they're really doing here, as long as the eyes aren't like doing something horrible where you can see how it affects the eyelids right there. I want to make sure that they're kind of following along with the head. And then here, as the eyes are opening, I kind of want these to be keyed a little bit more closely, because the eyes and the eyelids will work together. So ease that open just a little bit more. Ease that in. There we go. So that's my eye curve. Now, I'm going to have to make adjustments for the eye darts, but at this moment, they're blocked in, and it's all good. What's my favorite color? Ooh, that's a good question. What is my favorite color? It used to be green. Green or white, which was just because of the Power Rangers. I always liked the Green Ranger, and then when he became the White Ranger, it's like, oh, what do I do? What's my favorite color? I don't know. I actually like all colors. I don't know if there's a color I don't like other than ones that are kind of like certain shades of yellow or green where they're kind of brownish, that kind of unappealing shade. But other than that, I really just like all colors. I tend to wear black a lot, so maybe I'll just go with black. And Johan, thank you for the reminder. I've created roughly 106 crow-related Mario Maker levels. Oh, that's awesome. I haven't played Mario Maker yet, which is a shame because I love Mario games. I really want to play it though. It seems like a lot of fun. Orange and neon, those are good colors. I love orange. It's such a cool shade, especially in certain ways. Yeah, any color is, when used properly, is beautiful. Exactly. Like I love pastel colors. They're just kind of washed out. I love vibrant colors. It's just all so it makes the world more fun, and clothing more fun too. And Power Rangers, the only Power Rangers I ever watched was the original. So the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Although I've always wanted to watch the Sentai Rangers, the actual Japanese version. Always seemed kind of cool. Okay. We've got the eye dart, the expression there. There we go. I don't want to distract from the point of the stream, but I'm wondering if you can point me in the right direction. I have a character who digs into the ground while trying to not slide backwards. What would be the best way to make it seem like bits of the ground are being thrown off from his hands and feet? The simplest method, honestly, is just animating some polygon spheres and just kind of having those get thrown out. So you can just make some simple polygon objects and then just kind of animate those getting thrown. Later on, you could kind of replace them with actual rocks and more detailed models if you want to, just copying the animation or constraining the rocks to the spheres. Even for kind of a showing for a demo reel, it doesn't have to be that complex. You don't have to worry about simulation or anything like that. And in most cases, it's actually going to be faster to animate it by hand and just get exactly what you want than to try and get a simulation working and then hoping it does what you would like it to do, which is always tricky. Yeah, that would be the first way I would approach it. If it's not working, let me know and we can kind of go over a few other scenarios that could work. Just to make sure I'm understanding an eye dart, is when the eyes move to show a change in the character's thoughts or emotion? No. An eye dart is just the way we look at the world. So, for example, if I'm kind of looking here, hopefully it'll be clear. So I'm looking at the camera, and then I look down, and then I look over. Those are eye darts. I'm just changing what I'm focusing on. And when we're looking at people, we're doing that all the time. So even, for example, if I'm looking at the camera, and I'm looking at myself on camera, hopefully this is reading. If I look at my forehead versus my chin, you can I don't know if that shows up. You can feel like the slight movement in the eyelids. That's an eye dart. Got a distracting question. Have you ever played Celeste? Yes, I have. I love it so much. I haven't finished it, but it's so good. I've wanted to actually play it on stream just to analyze the animations. But I haven't played in a while, so I'd probably be really bad at it. Yeah, I really love that game. But yeah, for eye darts, it's really just changing our focus. So for example, I'm looking at one monitor and then I look at the other. And if I don't move my head as well, that's an eye dart. It can be small, it can be big. They can pop and we call it darts. Exactly. That's why. Because the eye, it doesn't just move. So I can move my hand slowly, or I can move it quickly. I can pop it across the screen. We have a lot of control over these things. Our eyes, we have very little control over actually. So if I try to move my eyes smoothly, and you guys can try this yourself, you can't. Our eyes dart. They always pop. The reason we call it darts is because, or I should say, the reason why we don't call it pops is in animation, a pop is typically considered a bad thing. A knee pop, an elbow pop. Those are problems in spacing that need to be fixed. An eye pop would not be a problem. It's what we want. So instead we call it an eye dart to have clarity that it's not an issue. It's something we're aiming for. Yeah, it moves quickly, so it's called a dart. Exactly. And that's what we're trying to get here. Now, for bigger shots, and the next shot I'm going to be doing, at least I hope, as long as I can get things, some reference shot, I'm hoping to get some really big eye darts. That way we can really show the process. This one, the way it was planned out, and because the character's so far from screen, we're not getting the most that we can out of eye darts, but it is still very important that we get them in there. Let's see. I was wondering if it's okay to change the form of the eyes on a rig, like rotate, scale them to make a great line on the face. Yes, definitely. I do this all the time. For this rig, I haven't, mostly because his eyes are kind of small and we're far from camera. But on most rigs, I'm always shaping the eyes. I want to get a specific shape to the eyelids, to the form of the eye, the corner of the eye here. That is a good thing, as long as you're keeping the character on model. That's the only kind of caveat to that, is as we're shaping the eyes, we don't want to make them just random shapes or shapes that don't make sense anatomically, unless you're animating something very cartoony, to kind of we want to just keep that character on model. And this is actually something, is it the next thing? Because I've got the eye darts pretty much done for now. We can refine them later. I'll watch them in a play blast to see how they look. So the next thing is, I've got a few things on the mouth, and then we can come back to the eyes, because I do want to create a little bit more shaping in there. And I want to talk about a little bit of that shaping kind of mentality that I use when I'm trying to figure out what they could be. So the next thing that I want to focus on here is the mouth. So I have a note here. So for anyone who didn't see earlier, when I play blast a shot, I write down all the changes that I want to do, usually on a piece of paper, but it's hard to show on screen. So I'll write down all the notes, and then with that, I know what I have to fix. So I've done eye darts. Now, one thing I will do is I never cross things off like this until I know it's actually fixed, which won't be until I play blast the shot again and take a look at it. Now, I could play blast it and start like making sure the eye darts all work. But to me, I try to play blast as little as possible because every play blast takes time, and then it's another analysis project or process, I should say. It's looking at all the other mistakes that I haven't fixed, and it slows down your work. Every time you play blast, it's just another little pause in your work. Not bad, especially for big changes, but for something like this, I've done the eye darts. I don't want to have to stop and reanalyze, make sure that works before moving on. So I'm going to try to get as much done on the list first, and then play blast and reassess all of it. Did I fix that? Yes. Cross it off. Did I fix that? Yes. Cross it off. Did I fix that? Oops, not yet. It's not crossed off. Let's fix it again. So instead, what I like to do is I just put a little symbol beside it. For some reason, I just started doing triangles. So whenever I finish something, I'll just put this symbol beside it. So that way I know that it's ready to be analyzed. And you could just do whatever. If you want like a square, something like that. The only thing I don't do is a circle because it looks like a 0 or an O. I like triangles because there's really no letters that kind of look like those. And if I'm drawing quickly, if I do a square, sometimes they can look a little weird and wonky. Yeah, you're right. It actually does look like an A. If I just do that. Actually, a square would probably be better. Although that could still be an A. Like that. Versus, what would a spiral? No, that just looks like a 6. Oh no, what shapes do we know? The octagon? That just looks more like an O. No worries. I'm having an existential crisis. Stars? I could do a star. The problem with a star is I usually use those for something that is important, that I need to address first. That's my kind of process. It would actually be the best symbol because it is unique. But for me, it indicates something that I need to focus on. So many thoughts on shapes. Yes, we could do a lot of different shapes. I'll just stick to my poor little triangle that is now an A. There we go. So basically I put a shape beside it just to know that, okay, it's done, but I need to reassess. So with that, let's have the mouth lower a little bit. So specifically, it's this moment right here. As he kind of looks on and his brows start to raise, as I was looking at it, it felt like the face just feels a little flat. And partly it's his mouth just stays the same. So this is kind of a stretch pose. He's going from compressed, everything down, and straightening out. And it stretches upwards. The problem is that the mouth just stays where it is, which makes it so only the top half of the face is moving, and it kind of makes it a little boring. So let's just move the lips a little bit and add a little extra stretch in that moment. So basically what I just need to do is this. Just bring that down. And the way I'm going to do this is that I'm just going to figure out where I need it to change. So I want it to happen after the brows. So the brows, we get the eye dart there, blink, brows start coming up maybe around frame 30. Let's have the mouth start coming down on frame 31. Or even 32. Let's actually do 32. So I'm going to go on frame 32. That's going to be the start of the change. And I basically want it to be that before the smile here, the mouth is going to come down. And we're just going to go for a really big change here. It's going to be very rough, but that's okay. So he starts to look over. Maybe one more frame. One frame earlier. And let's get my curves to work a little bit better. Okay. So, comes through. Mouth drops down. And the reason I want to do this is it also makes a bigger change when he goes into the smile here. As he goes into the smile, we get that kind of raise of the mouth as the mouth tightens up. So it's going to act as two different things. It's going to act as a way to improve the stretch pose. It also acts as an anticipation for the smile and makes the mouth just more interesting. So let's kind of refine this in here. So I think the timing of this is going to be okay. Mouth starts coming down there. The big thing is the spacing. It's just very even right now. So let's just kind of add a key in here. Too high. Let's just insert some keys. Boop, boop. And play with the spacing. So I want it to ease out, definitely, and then ease in at the bottom. And just have a kind of a quick transition. I want it to drop. So it comes in, and that's a little too quick. So let's ease that just a little bit. And we get something like that. Now I don't want it to bounce at the bottom. So let's add a key here as well. And just ease that a little bit right in there. So just tweaking a little bit of the timing, which is not a big deal. Clean up some curves. Kind of simplify certain sections. There we go. So now we get that little bit of a drop. Now it's a little bit big, I think. I'm going to just bring it back up a little. I think I could also try, let's see. Maybe pushing the mouth a little bit off to the side here. I'm going to try to offset it from the up and down. So it's just a little bit off. It'll just make it a little bit more interesting. It'll give a better arc just by doing that. So now we get a little bit of a side-to-side roll. The animation is average paying job or good paying job. There's no answer to that. That is a concrete answer. Mostly because it depends on where you live. Now, I will say animation is a very specific skill. So it's not, and this is not to kind of put down any other job, but for example, working at, let's say, McDonald's or something like that. It's not unless you're a manager or something, it's not a specific skill that you have to go into a university or something like that for, or train for years and years. Why a lot of high school kids go to work there, because it doesn't require experience. Animation requires experience. You have to know how to animate. Animation takes years to learn. So because of that, it is often paid a little bit more than kind of just jobs that don't require as much experience. With that said, it really depends on where you live. And depending on where you live, the numbers might seem high or low. So for example, if you're an animator in San Francisco, the living wage in San Francisco is absurdly high. Everything costs an arm and a leg there. Your rent is huge. The rent for a small single room apartment in San Francisco is more per year than it cost me to buy a house where I am right now. Not just a small house, like a good size house with a yard and everything. Like just a property. You can buy property here for less than you would rent an apartment in San Francisco. That means that the wages are vastly different. A living wage here would barely get me a meal in San Francisco. I would starve to death. So with that in mind, there's no specific numbers I can give. But it is a good paying job, a decent paying job. You're not going to become a millionaire at it. It's not going to be like glitz and glamour. But honestly, most animators do it because they love it. So that's not a huge issue. But you can live well. You can live very well on it. Is Montreal expensive? It's not as expensive as San Francisco. It is fairly expensive just because it's a big city. Not as bad as Vancouver either. It's definitely much more affordable than Vancouver. Okay. So we've got the mouth lowering there. Maybe I'll want a little bit more. Yep. There we go. So we just get that little bit of extra motion in there. Okay. Got that. Perfect. Now, just before I forget, I'm just going to take all of my curves here. I'm just going to create a buffer curve just so I can always reset if I need to. Okay. So looking at our list, mouth lowering, good. Let's do number 3. Where is it? The face is too relaxed at the end, and you see I'll put a question mark. This is just because I don't know if it's something I do want to change or not. So right here at the end, I feel like he gets really like excited. And then as I was looking at it, it just kind of feels like he loses a little too much of that excitement at the end. It kind of feels like he's almost bored. So I wanted to just do a quick test to see if I can get that excitement to stick a little bit more. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where as you're kind of blocking in shots and you're kind of trying to get things to read correctly and kind of going into that polish stage, there is never a time when you should just be going, well, I'm polishing and that's all I'm doing and there's no other tweaks that I need to do. You can always refine things more. Oh, trial mode. It keeps losing my my login. So if you feel like something needs to change in your animation, change it. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It needs to be done, so you do it. In this case, I found that I wasn't getting the emotional beat that I wanted. It felt like the character was feeling and doing something different. So I want to tweak that. So part of that is not letting the smile slip down as much. Kind of keeping that smile up a little higher so he doesn't relax. Smiles are very hard to relax. Usually if we relax a smile, it just comes out of a smile. I'm going to keep that in there a little bit more. I'm going to take these upper lids here and just kind of bring them up a little bit more. Just a little. Just so he kind of keeps that like extra focus in here. Let's do the same with the lower lids. Kind of keep them just a little bit more open. Just a little. Like that. And then we're just going to take the brows. I definitely want the brows to come down just because it gives that nice relaxation and we get a contrast. But I might just keep this corner here up a little higher. So we get a global lowering of the brow, but he's not losing the kind of like one brow curled a little bit more. There we go. Not a huge change. I could probably push it a little bit more. But now he doesn't feel like he's just relaxing into total just like, and I'm done. So yeah, it's really going through and analyzing what the goals of the shot are and not being afraid if you're losing that goal to work your way back to it. That is never a bad thing. And you can see I even want to change this brow here a little bit more. Kind of keep that a little higher. There we go. So it's tiny change, but that's all I really wanted. Aha. We're getting through our list. What kind of shape was that? Next, tongue pass. This is super important. Let's see. 4.5 room size apartment are about, or in Montreal are 1K a month, and the starting salary for a junior animator is between 35 and 50. Nice. Yeah, so as you can see, like that's a pretty good wage. Again, if you were in San Francisco, that would be nothing. You would probably not survive too well there, or you'd have to live way, way out from the city. I know a lot of people who have like a 4-hour commute just to get into San Francisco and all of that. It's crazy. That's too much. But yeah, New York is expensive. Montreal taxes are higher. Yeah, so this is one of the big things. When you're thinking of a job, you really have to be considerate of what the living wage is going to be in that area. So for example, when I first started working, I live out in Manitoba, out in the country. Costs are pretty low for housing and taxes because it's out in the country. And when I started hearing of the wages that animators were getting, like, whoa, like how is it so, how are you being paid so much? It's so much money. And if I had just jumped on that opportunity and taken certain jobs without looking into the living wages in that area, there were certain jobs that were offered to me where what they were paying me wouldn't have covered any living wage. I would have been paying the studio to work for them, essentially. Well, not paying the studio, but paying. I would be losing money trying to work for people because of the area that they're in. It just is not worth it. Other studios will make sure that they give you a living wage. It's really dependent. You have to look into these. Don't just go, hey, a studio offered me a certain sum. Okay. And work. Especially if it's like a small contractor or something, double check. Well, regardless, always double check your paperwork, double check the offers, double check the anything you have to sign. It's a good thing to do. And just keep in mind that as much as these studios are kind of our dream job, and like, yes, I want to work at Disney, I want to work at Pixar, I want to work at DreamWorks, all of these, any studio, regardless, they are a business. They are not a charity case. They are not there to make the world a happy place for every employee ever. They are a business trying to make money at the end of the day. Does it mean that they're evil? No. It's a business. There's a reason why there's that expression, like, it's just business, as much as I hate it. They are trying to run a large corporation. They do not care in the sense of, like, everyone has to be perfectly accommodated. They don't care really about that. They are looking for someone to do a job. It's your job now, as the employee, as the one who's looking to be hired, to make sure that they treat you right and fairly, and that you don't accept something that is not fair. So always double check. Again, it doesn't mean that the corporation is evil or like out to get you. Sometimes they are. I know a lot of studios that I'll put it more this way. They're studios that are really just a scam. I've had a lot of friends who've got offers from these like random studios where it's like they're trying to hire you, but honestly they're just trying to get free work out of you, and the contracts are just like a horrible scam. There's not that many, but they're out there. It goes with any industry. So always double check. Always, always, always. It's gonna make your life much better. And if you don't understand legalese, get a lawyer to read it for you and make sure that it's fair. It's better to pay a little bit of lawyer costs to have them read a contract than to sign a contract and be stuck in it for years and not be able to get out. So be careful. And that goes for anything. Animator, rigger, like construction worker, like whatever job you're getting, if you have to sign a contract, read it. So good. Be friends with a lawyer. Yeah, if you know someone who understands legalese, have them look at it. It's always good to have an extra pair of eyes on things like that. Okay, so I think we've got the brow pretty much done here, and we've done that expression. What was the next thing? Tongue pass. That's what it was. Okay, so the tongue. The tongue is very important. A lot of people skip out on the tongue. I've seen so many shots, especially from students. I've done this as well when I was a student, where the tongue is never animated. Oftentimes it's never even touched, where it's just kind of left in its default pose and that's it. The tongue moves a lot. It is hugely flexible, and it's the only way we can make sounds properly. It also moves around based on our emotions. If you're nervous, your tongue might kind of push against the roof of your mouth. If you're happy, it kind of pulls back. It moves in the mouth. If we don't move this, especially when the character is making a grand expression like this, we're missing out on a big element of the face. Now, to be fair, when the mouth is closed, forget about it. You don't have to animate anything because what's the point? The moment that the audience can see the tongue, so in my case, like right here pretty much, I need to animate it. I cannot forget about it. I cannot just go, it's good enough. It's there. Now, in this case, I've actually posed it out already. All I need to do is kind of refine that and get a little animation. Now, this is where you want to shoot reference of your mouth. Just shoot reference of your face or look in a mirror and either do the expression or say the line and look at how your tongue is moving. In this case, when you kind of go like that, the tongue will typically kind of start out more relaxed. It comes back and then relaxes again by the end of that motion. As it comes back, it actually widens out as well as it's compressed back. So that's what I'm going to try to get in here. So I'm going to go to the first frame here where the mouth is open, and I'm just going to pose out the tongue. Very basically. I've already got a simple pose, but I want to exaggerate it a little bit more. Want that a little higher. Or actually, no, let's keep it a little lower at the beginning so we can get more contrast later. Okay, so there. Let's go to the point where the mouth is at its largest, which is going to be right around here. Now this is where making sure you have a selection set for the tongue can be very helpful. So I'm going to just take all of these, go to edit, create sets, quick select set. I'm going to call this tongue. And let's just add that to the shelf. Now whenever I need to select the tongue, I can just hit that. Let's set a key here. Make sure I set a key on all my other controls there. Boop. Boop. Let's delete our other keys. Don't need them. And let's repose the tongue right here. Now this is the base of the tongue, so I can roll this up. I'm going to bend the tongue in and scale it out. And just have the tongue kind of roll back here. And press down in the back. So we're just getting that slight shape change in the tongue. So something like that. And if we compare, it's not going to be a huge difference visually, but it's going to be important to have. It's similar to eye darts. It's better to have them and feel them than to just ignore them completely. Now, let's see. How can I push this shape a little bit more? Maybe I'll take this. Oops. Whoop. Selecting the wrong control. You get so many good face shapes there. Oh, geez. Thank you guys so much for following. Naspa, Duba, and Infantry. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. For some reason, my follow notifications, I don't hear them. I hope they're coming through on the stream. But lately, I've noticed I've missed a lot of follows, which sucks because I always like to thank people for following. I really appreciate it. Okay, so I want to just get a little bit more roll on the tongue here. Gonna get that shape wider at the back. So really push that in there. So let's see how this feels already. Not much of a change. So let's make it a bigger change. I'm gonna just take that tongue, straighten it out, bring this kind of down a little bit. So relax the tongue at the beginning. See. So something like that. A clip of mine. If you want, you can definitely do that. I don't mind links as long as they're fun and interesting, which most always are. I also want to get a little angle here. You can see how the tongue is very flat. Awesome. Thank you so much for that clip. Was that from a previous stream or from this one? Let me see here. Okay, nice. Thank you so much. Mostly because it depends on where you live. Now I can hear two of me. Wahaha. Awesome. Thank you so much. I always appreciate when people make clips of the different segments, because I know like sometimes there's just this like one little bit of information like in a 3-hour stream. And it's always hard to find those just like random bits. So I really appreciate that. Okay, yeah, so looking at the tongue again before I forget, I'm noticing there's this kind of flatness to the tongue right there. Let's rotate that just to kind of help kind of push that line of action of the face right down into the tongue as well. So now let's see how this feels. There we go. Now we feel this little contrast where the mouth is opening but the tongue is coming up. So we get that, and then we can relax. Now, one thing I'm also noticing is right here, we're starting to see a little bit too much gum at the top of that smile. You can kind of feel it there. I believe this is part of this rig. There is a connection between the teeth and, or sorry, not the teeth, the lips and the jaw opening, which means you have to counter animate certain things, which I'm not a huge fan of personally. I like to have a little bit more control myself over these kinds of elements, but not a huge deal. I can just kind of refine my curve right there. Okay, I'm also noticing I'm getting a little clipping. You can see right there of the gums. So let's find those teeth controls. And I'm just going to push this back ever so slightly. Just zip. Push that back. There we go. Okay. Now, let's go back to the tongue here. So for the tongue, I just want the tongue to relax at the end here. As he closes his mouth, the tongue should really just reset back to its kind of relaxed state. I'm just going to copy that over, and I'll just make a few small adjustments so it doesn't reset completely. One thing I'm not a fan of is poses just kind of going from, let's say, pose A, pose B, and then back to pose A. I would much rather have it kind of go from a pose A to a pose B and then a pose C, which could be similar to pose A, but not exactly the same. So I'm just going to slightly tweak this, get a little bit of a change in there. So something like that. Not a huge change. But now we've got a little bit of tongue animation. Is it huge, noticeable? Not really. And that's kind of the point. I don't need, in this case, a big, like, I don't need this to happen where he's just sticking his tongue up in the air or something like that. That's not the point of this. It's really just trying to get a little bit more variation to the tongue. Now, one thing I do love to do if the rig supports it, which I don't know if this one does, it doesn't look like they do, is certain rigs will have like the tongue curl, so some people can curl their tongues. I love to add that a little bit into a rig. Even if it's not like a full curl and like pinch, just kind of flattening or bending the tongue that way can be huge in just getting a little bit more variety in the posing. So if I can get that, I'll try. If not, it's not a big deal. Now with this, let's actually just create a little bit of a hold here, so the tongue doesn't just bounce in the mouth. So something like that. Create a little bit of a hold there. There we go. Might be a little extreme, but I'd rather have it be a little too much right now, and then I can always tone it back a little bit later. So we'll go with something like that. We'll see how that feels. I think I'm going to have to exaggerate a little bit more. Just a little bit. Let's actually, I want it to hold a little longer down right here. So it kind of comes up as his mouth opens. Just like that. If I feel like the timing's a little off, I can just take the whole thing. Boop. Retime it. It's not a big deal to have any changes in here. And let's just key it right to the end there. There we go. Now I could also, if I wanted to, just delete any extra keys, because hey, we don't need them. So there we go. It's nice to do a little bit of curve cleanup at this point, just to make sure that you don't have keys that you'll never use. It's not needed, but it just makes things cleanlier. Okay, so tongue animation. Yay, didn't take long. Okay, number 5. Facial connection. Yay, that's the big one that I wanted to do today. So let's start jumping into that. Oops, I don't want to dock that there. Okay, so in terms of facial connection, the big thing is going to be just thinking through how does the face connect to everything. I just started AM Course 1 with Tim Ingersoll. Oh, awesome. Tim is so much fun. He is such just an awesome guy. Your video on these survival guys are a lifesaver. Oh, I'm glad. I need to re-record those, both Cameron and I. They're getting a little old, but at the same time, it was so much fun to do, and I like those recordings. It's like a look back to a younger me. Kyle. Nice. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. And if you have any questions, this goes for everyone. If anyone has questions about anything I'm talking about or anything in general, feel free to ask. That's what these streams are all about, is just giving people a place to ask questions. We can have a conversation. We can go off on random tangents and just talk about anything animation or anything art or life related as well, if you'd prefer. I'm not great at drawing, but I do know some drawing tips that I learned from my brother. So if you're interested in that, I can try. I can at least give a tip or some tips and tricks. Not that I can do them very well. But yeah, always feel free to ask questions. Now, in terms of facial connectivity, the big thing that we're going to have to do here is just think through how things are connected. This is a process that you can do forever. There's always some little thing you can add. The big factor here is whether the audience is going to see it or not. Was the tangent animation pun? It wasn't intended to, but we'll say it was. Let's see. What is your view on the new Animaniacs? I'm super interested in it. I can't wait to see it. They look like they're really doing a good job with it. I know a lot of people who work on it, and they're super passionate. Like, they're putting so much work into it. I can't wait to see it. Just for the fact of seeing their work, it is going to be so much fun. Okay, so facial connection. I'm going to try to get through this thought before I'm distracted again. Facial connection is one of those things that we can do forever. Now, the problem is, or I shouldn't say a problem, but the limiting factor is if anyone's going to see it. So if I had a shot that is close up like this, just super close up, I will need to make sure that I'm animating everything. Every little wrinkle that I can, every eye shape, I'm going to have to go in super detail to make sure that works. If my shot, so like imagine this, if we were animating this, we would need to make sure everything is working. Our shot is focused here. I'm going to have a lot less details. So as I'm animating this, I have to keep that in mind, that I do not need to animate every single little tiny little detail. All I need to do is animate enough for this shot. Now, the way I kind of do this, because you can get lost in this very easily, is, let me actually show this. I'll take my camera view here. This is the actual view. I'm going to go to panel, tear off copy. Now, unfortunately, you guys won't be able to see this, but what I'll do is I'll just put it on my other monitor, full screen like this. This gives me a good indication of what the audience will see if they were to watch this full screen. So I'll just throw that on my other monitor, and at any time I can just look over and see, is what I'm doing affecting it in any way? Now, technically, I should have done this right from the start, whenever you're doing like eye darts and stuff, but we can at least have that for now. So with that in place, I'm just going to go through and start connecting things. Now, there's really no place to start with, like, in the sense of you have to start with the eyes, you have to start with the mouth, you have to start with a certain point. No, you can do whatever you want, honestly. The big thing is that you just work smartly. So this is where knowing how the face connects is very important. So for example, brows, they are, let me go full screen here. Brows are connected to the eyes, the top of the eyes here. So everything here is going to affect each other. If I'm animating something on the brows, I want those to start affecting the top lids and kind of a little bit into the lower lids. The top lids are affected by the kind of cheeks a little bit. The lower lids are especially affected by the cheeks. Cheeks are affected by the mouth. So if I do this, that is affecting the cheeks, which will affect the lower lid, affect the top lid a little bit. So the mouth is kind of the big factor here. This means that I want to make sure that my mouth animation is pretty close to done. The brows are the next big factor. I want to make sure those are pretty close to done before I start adding a lot of tiny connections. The eyelids, your blinks, and your main eye motions, so if I look over in any direction, those affect the eyelids as well. So I want to make sure that eye darts, eye direction changes, anything that is the eyeball itself moving, those are pretty close to done. It doesn't have to be like finalized, never touching this again, but at least get it close. Any big changes you're going to do on those are going to affect all that connection that you're building. So those are kind of the big three things: eyebrows, eyes, and mouth. Once you have all those, you can just kind of build the connections in the way you want. So let's jump in here and we'll start with the eyes. So let's take a look at this and let me check the chat here. I recently found out that a shot that I watched someone create earlier this year, back in April, that the animator had you look at their shot, and now I can see your advice in their piece. I wonder if I remember that shot. I probably do. I would love to check it out again. It was the first shot I just watched someone go all the way through animating, and it was amazing. Which shot was that? I would love to check it out, because I don't know if I ever saw the Lola. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, his work is amazing. So good. Or their work, I should say. Yeah, the Zelda one. Yeah, that one was a good shot. Yeah, I need to check it. I don't know if I ever saw the final version. I should definitely check him out on Twitter again. Okay, so I lost track of what I was doing. So the thing I'm gonna work on here is going to be, let's see, the first thing I want to work on. It's not going to be as interesting, but let's do the eyes first, because the eyes are kind of the window to the soul. I want to make sure those are feeling connected and interesting. We'll kind of shape them. We'll come back to them a little bit later, but I want to get some core shapes in there. So when I'm doing the eyes, the big thing that I'm trying to focus on is trying to connect any small motions, eye darts, things like that, as well as connecting larger motions. So eyebrows raising, we've kind of done that already when we have, for example, the brows moving. We did a slight pass on that already. The other thing I want to do is I want to focus on the skin above the eye, right here. This is a control that a lot of people kind of skip out on, but it's a very important one because it affects how a character might feel tired, awake, more focused. So for example, if he's really surprised, we're going to get a little bit more of a raise here. If he's kind of a little bit more tired, we might lower that and kind of keep that nice and smooth. We can get a lot of different expressions using these. So let's just do a quick pass. I don't like to take too much time on this on my first pass. I want to just kind of get things in there, and then from there I can refine later and really go in. Depending on how much time we have in the stream, we'll see how far we get with it. But I at least want to show as much as I can for you guys. So let's say at the beginning here. Overall, I think this is working pretty well. We've got the main shape here. We've got the squint. Now, if I really want to push the squints, you can see if I squint here, the corner of the eyes get really compressed. Very, very compressed. So if I really want to exaggerate this squint, I could take this and push this down a little bit more. And take this one, kind of push that up. So something like that. You can see the difference here. One is a squint, the other is just the brows down. So the reason this is happening when we squint is not just that the eyelids are being pressed together, it's that the cheek is pushing up higher. So let's take this kind of cheek control area here and push that up as well. It's going to help wrinkle that section of the face. I can even take this if I wanted to and bring that up to help push those wrinkles in there. Not all rigs have that, but it can be a very nice thing to kind of push in there. So we're exaggerating that squint. Now I don't want to go too far with this, mostly because from a distance, from this camera, if I go too far, we're just going to lose the whole eye completely. It's just going to, you're just going to see a tiny little dot of blue. So I want to keep a little bit of control over that and just kind of shape the squint a little higher. Get that compression in the eyelid here. It's tiny, but we're going to feel it. And this is kind of this whole pass is trying to get to feel these moments. Now, I'm actually, just for the sake of making this easier to animate, I'm going to take all of these controls. So let's take the orbital, all of these here. I can drag, oop, all of these here, except for the brows, don't need those. Okay, so I'm just selecting everything. The blink controls are good. Actually, no, we'll take those off because we've already got that pretty much refined. If I need to adjust something, I can always select them again afterwards. I just want these refinement controls selected. Okay, just like that. Again, go to Create, Sets, Quick Selection Set, and we'll call this Eyes. So now I can just key in on all of this, select all that, and for example here, I can just rekey this whole section. So boop, put a key here. I'm going to delete the key in the middle. Keep that nice and simple. So now we've got that. We get that nice squint right at the beginning. Now we have this eye dart here. It's going to be small, but it's going to be very helpful. I'm going to set a key. And on frame 9, as the eye darts here, I want to connect the eyelids to that eye dart. You can see that by default, the rig has a little bit of a connection already, which is nice. But from this distance that we're looking at the character, no one's going to see that. So I need to exaggerate this. Essentially, what it is making sure that the eye, which the eyeball, let's draw somewhat of a sphere. The eyeball is not a perfect sphere. It's got a lens to it. So it's got this kind of bump to it. And your iris is sitting underneath that. That's the lens of the eye. This is what causes us to be able to see correctly. Without that lens, light doesn't go into the eye properly. So we have that lens. The eyelid sits over top of that lens and kind of sticks out just a little bit. What this means is that as we move our eye, that lens is pushing the skin of the lid around. So in this case here, as it's going down, what's going to happen is the skin right here, and let's actually select the actual eye control, which is, where are you? It's nice to go into wireframe mode in moments like this. Try to find the one you're looking for. And I'm looking for the little blue control. Do they not have one? Let's see. Let's go to an open pose so we can see that. Okay, I'm gonna have to use the blink and then counter with the other ones. Not a big deal. Okay. So on this pose, from here to here, I'm gonna take my blink control. Just open that up a little bit more. And what I'm looking at is kind of the relationship between the pupil, the black of the eye, and the lower lid. It doesn't have to match exactly, but it's going to be somewhat close. We get that. Let's actually bring this up here because I didn't have a key on that lower lid. So right there. So now we get this. And you feel that connection. Now in this case, it's a little too one-to-one. The eyelid is not glued on top of the eye rolls underneath, but we feel that pressure changing the eye shape ever so slightly. So we get that. This section might crease, or let's say uncrease just a little bit as the eye relaxes. So we get something just like that. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. You can honestly go really complicated with this, but it doesn't have to. Okay, let's take that eyelid, make sure it holds that pose or else it'll just kind of drag back up. So I'm just gonna whoop, move that there, ease that out. There we go. We've got that connection in there. Okay, let's go further. As they're blinking, when we blink, our eyes don't open up evenly and perfectly. The same with our mouth. When we open our eyes, the corners tend to be a little bit stickier. Instead, it opens up a little bit more in the middle. So here we get this perfect crease from one corner all the way to the other. What I can do is just come in here and just drag those top corners down a little bit. Take the eyelid and lead that up just a little bit more. And we start to get a little bit more of a kind of realistic opening here, where the outer edges are a little bit kind of gluier. Like, it's not the best term, but it's basically what happens. So here, I'm starting to open the eye from the, again, the lens of the eye, where the pupil is, versus just opening it up as if it's a half circle. It's not a big change. Honestly, it's one frame. No one's ever really going to notice. But it's going to make a big difference in the character. Now, the other thing I'm noticing is that the screen left eye is kind of out of place a little bit. So I'm going to realign that. This is something you're going to have to do. I haven't done this yet because honestly, I was very lucky and didn't have to. But when you're dealing with an eye control, you're typically going to have to readjust one of the eyes to lock them on properly. This is normal. When we're moving in real life, our eyes don't stay perfectly in line at all times. If you're looking more one way than another, one eye is going to travel further than the other. It's just the way our eyes work. So as I'm posing this out, at this point, I'm going to be trying to apply that a little bit and basically just readjust one of the eyes. Now, as I'm doing that, I don't want to have to adjust both eyes at the same time all the time. That gets very tedious and you're always counter animating. It's just a pain. So instead, I use the master control, this one here, and this is going to be now the control for, in my case, the screen right eye. I'm going to use this to get that eye in the perfect position. The screen left eye, I'm going to use the other control to readjust that. This way I'm not having to deal with three controls. The master that gets it in position, and then these two others that are countering that. I have one control that controls one eye, another that controls the other. I usually find that works pretty well, and it kind of simplifies the amount of controls you have to use. Okay, so this is getting a little too sticky right here. So let's kind of rotate that, and then I'm going to rotate the eyelid here. And then as the eye opens, I'm just going to watch that it doesn't pop right here. That eyelid is just kind of popping up a little too fast right there. I can even lower this here, add a little bit more shaping to the eye. Do you typically animate using the global setting on the eye control rather than aligning it with the head? It really depends. I don't have one, like, I always use this or I always use that. It really depends on the scenario. In this case, because he's focused on something in one spot, I have that eye locked so that as I move the head, it doesn't move with. It'll rotate with. This keeps the eyes kind of aligned. Otherwise, if the rotation doesn't match the head, the eyes start to go off in different directions. But I like to do this in this case. If the character was just kind of in their own world and kind of doing this and thinking to themselves, I'll just have it follow the head because the eyes aren't locked onto a specific target. And I might switch this mid shot as well, where a character might be kind of in their own thoughts and then they focus on something and I'll switch it at that moment. See, I feel like I'm losing the squint too early here. I'm going to go to my squint controls. So right there. Yeah, it's starting to transition right in here. I'm going to try to hold on a little longer here. So let's copy this there. And I'm going to lose the squint during the blink. It kind of felt weird that he would, like, squinting and then he relaxes, then blinks. Feels like the blink should be the thing that causes it to relax. Okay. So we get the eye open here. How can I improve this eye pose? Well, there's a few different things I could do. One of them simply being rotating the eye slightly this way. So it's not a big change, just that to that. I could even pull this up if I wanted to, a little bit more. In this case, because it's bored, I want to kind of keep it as flat as possible. But by rotating this, what I'm doing is I'm essentially allowing the eye to adjust the eyelid once again. So where the eye is looking is opening that eye just a little bit more on that side. I could do this with the lower lid as well. So like right here, just open that up just a little bit more there. Doesn't have to be much, but we'll feel it. Now, some people like to do this as they're animating. Sometimes I'll do that. Because this character's eyes are so... they're small in comparison to most rigs, which is kind of weird. Most rigs have really big eyes. I can kind of exaggerate this a little bit more now versus earlier. If I had tried to do it earlier, it might have been hard to read properly. Okay, so now we get this eye dart. Let's connect those lids. So bottom lid is pretty simple. We can see how it's touching the blue of the eye. As the eye darts, it's going to keep touching that blue of the eye. It's going to move with, like that. Top lid, fairly simple. Going to move up with it. Open up just a little bit more. And probably rotate more too. Just a little bit like that. There we go. Now you can see how I've locked it almost. The edge of the pupil here to the eyelid matches a little too close there. Let's lower it just a little bit more. If you lock the eyelid too much, you're going to get a glued feeling versus a natural eyelid readjustment. So we get that. Now the other eye is kind of getting a little lost in the corner, so I'm going to pull it out ever so slightly. There. And let's key it there. And then make sure it doesn't slip and slide around. So there, copy it here. There we go. So it just kind of helps readjust it a little bit. Okay. So we've got that eye dart. Let's do the other eye. And you can go as deep as you want on this, honestly. There's no limiting factor here. So as the eye darts up, once again, our eyelid's going to open up just a little bit here. Open up on that side just a little bit more. Bottom lid might come up just a tad. So we get that connection in the eye. That's a little too much. There we go. Very slight, but it's there. Now just make sure that on the in-between here, the eye leads. So what I'm going to do is just favor the previous pose. So because this is a 2-frame eye dart, I just need to make sure that the eyelid here lets the eye lead. So the eye should be the thing that starts moving and then the lid follows. It's going to be very close to each other because, well, they're touching, literally. But I do want it to have a little bit of a offset in there. Maybe that's a little too much there. Okay. Ease that in. Get that rotation to not reset itself over time here. And then here, as he rotates his head around, we can have this transition because the eye is moving. Okay. What else can we do? Well, maybe let's try playing around with the skin over top of the eye, because we haven't really done that yet. So we have the brow as well as this one here. So when he's bored, what I kind of want to do is as he blinks here, we can have that come down a little bit as well. Let's kind of get both of them at the same time. On the blink, it'll come down ever so slightly. Not as much as the blink, but enough that they feel connected. And then as his brows raise up, I'm going to keep those just a little bit lower. And what that's going to do, especially this one, is just going to make him feel kind of tired. His eyes aren't wide open and kind of focused. And then I'm going to change that when he goes into his big surprised look. So let's keep that down here. Then the other one. Oops. On control. This one. Same thing. A little lower. Into the surprise. It changes. Okay. So what this is just going to do is give a little bit more fleshiness to the top of the eye right in there. And now when we get to this, we get that little bit more of a dynamic shape in there. And speaking of dynamic shape, if I really wanted to push this, I tend to like to do something like this with the shape of the eye over top. So we get a little bit more of a straight edge here and then a straight edge there versus one universal curve. I don't know if I'm going to do this for this shot, honestly. I might. We'll see. It wouldn't be hard to do, because I could just kind of take this curve, move it there, take this curve, move it pretty much there, and then just copy that for the whole shot. And that just readjusts that whole, the whole animation to have that in there. And it gives a little bit more shape to it. A little bit more of a dynamic feeling. Now, one thing I'm feeling right here. It looks up. We get that nice shock in there. Comes through. Now, let's actually do a very important bit here, which is when he starts to smile, I really need to push the corners of the eye upwards. These need to come up, and I think I can grab the skin beside it as well. We'll see how that works. And kind of push these up together a little bit. Now, you don't want to go too high or else it looks like he's gotten a facelift. But just a little bit is going to show that connection between the mouth and the eyes. A genuine smile. So kind of, if I go up here and I smile, you can see how that doesn't affect anything up here. Just, that's not a genuine smile. It's just the mouth goes up. But a genuine smile, if in pain, like a genuine smile when you go, yay, happy, you can see how the corners get affected just a little bit. It's mostly the skin here, not so much the eye. In animation, we can actually push the eye corner up. So when you get that, that gets that genuine smile, the corners of the eye getting affected. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look for the moment he starts to smile. So right around here, 36. Let's actually start a couple frames off from there. So 37, no, we'll go on 36. And then go to the first stage of the smile, which is here. I'm just going to slightly raise those eyes, just a tiny bit. Right there. He'll hold that until he starts to get into the bigger smile, which is 51. So let's just delete all those. Boop. And then as he gets into the really big smile here, so let's see, it's going to be at its biggest right around 55. Push that up a little bit. Right around there. You ever put your fingers on your eye corners and felt them when you blink? Yeah, it's horrible. You don't realize how much your eyes blink. And if you look at slow motion footage of the blinks, it's really cool to see how much the corners and like your whole, it's not just the eyelids, it's the whole shape of the eye is changing. It is fascinating. I would love to do a shot one day that's just like super close up of the eyes, an extreme close up, and just really animate that. I should actually do that soon. I would love to do that. So here I'm just going to refine this raise here. And just kind of ease that in just a little bit right there. So now we get the eyes raising as he smiles, and you can see the difference here. There to there. It's not a huge there to there. That helps if I'm on the right frame. So there to there. This looks sad, whereas this is a little bit more active. Maybe it's a little too high, but I'd rather have it a little too high than too low. So, let's see. With that, it's going to hold up there until he relaxes into the other smile here. So right around frame, we'll go 64. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise frame 64 to be just a little higher. Somewhere around there. And then Just make that transition. So let's get rid of all the extra keys. Don't need them. Hold that. And then it comes down. And then we hold the last pose right there at the end. There we go. Now those eye corners are connected to his emotional state. Is it a big change? Not really, but it's going to make a difference. It's going to make that smile feel connected to the rest of the face. So, yay! Now I could also do the same thing with the inner corner, because the inner corner does move as well when we smile. For this shot, because of the distance, I might not do that. We'll see. We'll kind of get a feel for it later on. So we can keep pushing all of this. So let's actually go through. Where else can we go? So we were kind of here. We did all the eye corners. He opens his eyelid here. I would like to try and push the shape of the eyes during the turn here a little bit more. So what I mean by that is the bottom eyelid kind of just feels flat. The top lid as well a little bit. So what I'm going to try to do is on this section, I'm going to lower it a little bit there. I'll worry about the transitions later. And then as he gets into this section, I want to open it up on that side. A little bit more like so, and then kind of lower it just a little bit. So it feels like the eyeball is kind of affecting the lower lid a bit. Let's create a transition here. Ease that. Let's keep the rotation a little lower. Okay. So something like this. It's not a big change. Honestly, not big at all. But we're going to feel it coming through there. As the eye kind of rolls through, we feel that change. Okay, just gonna hold here, and then we'll ease out there. Okay, so with that, let's actually just work on the transitions, because as we can see, we're getting a few random peaks and pops in there. So let's figure out if we actually need them. This one, don't need. Honestly, I don't need Translate X in this pretty much at all. So the big thing is going to be the rotation here. Let's just kind of bring that down. Boop. There we go. So we've got that eye kind of connected in there now. The other eye doesn't need it as much. It would be nice to put it in, but honestly, if I didn't get to it, it wouldn't be a big deal. The main reason being that he's not really refocusing that eye too much. It's staying in the screen right corner of the eye. If I really wanted to adjust this, I could tweak a little bit of this corner here so that it kind of raises back up just a little bit as he turns his eye. Or Better yet, I could just rotate this. So at this corner here, let's open that up just a little bit more. And then by the time he gets here, that's good there. We kind of get that rolling motion in that lid. And let's create just a nice transition here. The graph editor is so helpful for moments like these. You can just get this nice subtlety and connection to the eyes super quick, and then you're good. Okay. So we've got that. Comes through. We've got the corners. We could keep going and do all sorts of things in here. I kind of want to show as many different things as possible. One thing that would be really nice to do is tie in the lower skin here. So which control? This one. That with the smile. So this is going to be a very important one because this is a control that basically determines whether compression in the eye looks like a sneer or a sneer or a smile. So if you sneer, it's the inner edge that gets pulled in. If you smile, it's the outer edge of the cheeks. So if I take this and I just pull this up universally, this looks okay. It adds compression. But instead, if I take the outer corner, for example, and bring that up and kind of keep the inner side relaxed, this is going to feel like a smile in the eyes. Whereas if I do the opposite and do this, this is going to feel more like a sneer. So to make the eyes feel a little bit more smiley, I can take the outer corners here and just use these to kind of push that up. Now I'd also want to use the main one as well, because this is going to help kind of show the connection between the cheek and the eye. So do you have a half blink in there before the surprise? Do I? I think I do. Can't remember. Yeah, it's just a little half blink right there. For some reason, I couldn't remember if I had animated that or not. I know I had wanted to. Okay. So, the first smile here, I don't really need to adjust too much in the crease of the eyes, but I do want to add a little bit. So, as he gets into his full smile here, I'm just going to bring these up a little. Just a little bit. And let's take the inner ones here. I'm just going to bring that up a little as well. Just a little. So we go from here. Let's find where they start. There. Okay, this is good. Let the mouth lead a little bit. Okay. So they're going to hold up until frame... We'll go 40... No, we'll go 50. So delete all the keys in between. At this point, there's no reason to keep keys you don't need. So 40 to 50, set a key. They hold there. Go into the big smile. So that's going to be 54 approximately. And now we can raise it all up. So the middle ones go up. The outer ones, you can see there's still a little bit of a gap. And then the outer ones here, I can even raise. And if I really wanted them to look happy, you could do that, where the cheek starts to raise and cover the eyes. I don't need to go that far for this one, but I could if I wanted to. So, with that, let's take these controls here and delete that key in the middle. So now, as he smiles, we get a little bit of that pressure in the eye. And you can see the difference here and here. It's not huge, but look at the pressure under the eye. This one's relaxed. There's this big eye bag under his eye, which makes him feel like he's just not doing anything with the eye. There's no compression there. By doing this, it just helps to give that little bit of subtle happiness. Not much, but it's going to make the world of difference. Now, they're going to hold that probably until frame... at least until frame 63. I'm just going to delete those keys. Copy that over. And then I'll let those relax a little bit. Not all the way, but maybe up to there. Delete the extra keys. Okay. There we go. And you can see it's not perfect. I can go in here and add extra variation to these curves so that they're not just perfect holds. But this point right now is not to get this absolutely perfect. It's just to kind of build this in there and make sure it works. I can refine this much more later on. So one thing I just want to tweak in here is I kind of feel like this middle section is just a little high. So I'm just going to tone those down a little bit. Something like that. Okay. So now we've got that skin above the eye kind of tied in. Great. And we can keep going with this. So for example, this right here, the skin over the eye is not really connected to anything right now, which is not a bad thing, but it would be cool to tie it into the eyebrows a little bit. So as the eyebrows go up and kind of stretch the eyes, that this kind of goes up as well, just a little bit. So I could quickly build that in. Now I'm going to do it manually here, but then I want to show you guys a way to speed up this process. So 45, we're going to start there. As it goes up, let's find the highest point here. Let's say around 49. Go get those up just a little higher. So where did I say the beginning was? 45. Okay. So let's just delete those keys there. And ease that out. Like so. And then it'll hold. Till about 63. Boop. And then it can relax again. Make a little bit of an ease out there. There we go. And now we get just this subtle little relaxation in the upper lids. Not much, but it's in there. Okay. So this is all one way of doing it. You just find where things would connect and you put it in. And again, we could keep going with this all day. But let's actually go on to some other things just to show some other areas we can kind of improve. Well, we've done the eyes. Let's actually go down and we're going to do the nose first, because the nose is actually a very important part of our face that moves around quite a bit. In this case, what I want to do is as he kind of gets excited, his nostrils should flare. As we kind of get really happy and excited, especially in this section here, his nostrils should get just a little bit wider. and they should actually flare out a little bit. So I just want to get those keyed in here. So we've got that. Let's set a key. And find out when that should start happening. It'll be kind of delayed from the mouth. So the mouth will start going out first. Or actually, no, let's actually have the nostrils lead here, just for the sake of it. It'll ease out and then kind of go quickly into the next part. You're not going to see it, but you're going to feel it. And then they're going to kind of stay right up until that point there, and then ease out. Be a little sooner. Okay. So something like that. Now I could add that elsewhere into the shot, especially when he's breathing. That would be a good moment here. So as he breathes, he takes in a breath. Find that biggest moment of the breath. Let's add that flare. And as the nose flares out, we can add just a little scooch of translate X. I could even like raise the nostrils up if I wanted to be a little bit of a snooty, like kind of motion like that. Because his mouth isn't moving, it would feel weird to do that part. But let's go in here and create a little bit of breathe in. So something like that. Okay, then we need the exhale. As he exhales, I want that to be a little bit sharper. So, exhale there. And make that really sharp. Okay. Are we going to read that? Probably not from this angle, but it's built in there if I need it. Okay. What else can we do? So did a little bit on the nose. Let's get the mouth and cheeks in. Now, this is where we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit faster, because essentially what we need to do here is we need to animate this control. This is going to be all of the skin of the upper cheek here. This is what's going to help give the feeling of life and squishiness to this whole section. You can see here how it can affect the silhouette quite a bit. And one way you can kind of visualize this is in your viewport, just go to shading, wireframe on shaded. This is going to show you all the topology of the face. And what we're looking for here with this cheek control is getting this motion in here, where you can feel that connection in that section. Right now, regardless of what's happening in the mouth, you can kind of see it here. There's really not that much change happening right here. Like, look at the mouth. Big change in the mouth. Cheeks do nothing. That's not really how cheeks work. Our cheeks are very much tied into the corners of our mouth. So I want those to really be affected together. Now, I could go through and manually put it all in. I could do that. Honestly, that's kind of a waste of time because it's just a lot to try and get in there. Especially when I've already got my animation. So I've got all of this animation on the corners of the mouth, which essentially is affecting what should be happening in the cheek. So let's just take that and copy it over. So for example, let's take my translate X curve. I'm going to select this from the mouth, go to edit, copy, select the cheek control here, and I'm just going to delete all the keys on it other than the first key. Don't really need them. And we're doing translate X, so I'll select that, edit, paste, and I'm just going to paste it in here. Now you'll want to double check your settings. So the time range I'm copying from the clipboard. Basically what that means is copying from what was originally copied. It's not switching it to a different time. I only want one copy. I don't want to add an offset yet. I'll do that manually. And paste method. I want to replace the current animation. And then I want to do I could do the entire curve. That way it makes sure to do everything. I could also do time range because honestly, I haven't changed my time range, so it won't make a difference. So let's do that. Paste. There we go. Now that cheek is going to be animated. And oh my God, we've done something horrible. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? Ah, it's lovely. It's too much. Normally when you're copying things over like this, it's gonna make things weird. So all you need to do is scale it down. So I'm gonna go to the lowest point here. So in here, and I'm just gonna scale that back. I'm gonna use the region tool right there in the graph editor. It's a nice scaling tool for this kind of stuff. I'm going to scale that control back to a nice kind of, I want it squished, but I don't want it so far out that it's like broken. Now I'll go to my highest point here, scale that back down until we get that silhouette that we want, that big, nice, round cheek. Maybe, let's see, how far do I want to go? Well, let's go about there. That seems pretty good. Now, as he moves his mouth here, you can see there's a little bit of animation right there. Nice. But not much, because we're only doing the translate so far. Let's, translate X so far. Let's do the translate Y. So, same thing. Take that mouth control, translate Y, edit, copy. You can also use Control C in this case. Select the cheek control here, translate Y, edit, paste. Now, once again, we're going to blow a hole in that face. So, if we look at it now, it'll be interesting when he goes into the smile. Yep, that's what I was expecting. And we haven't even gone to the big smile yet. Oh God. It goes so high that it actually breaks the cheek completely. There we go. It's beautiful. Let's do the same thing again. We go to the lowest point on that curve, and we're going to raise that up. So I want that a little higher here. Probably right near the default. And then comes through. Let's go to the highest point, which is going to be way over here, and scale that back down. Way down. Way, way down. And once again, I just want to get a nice little bit of a silhouette in there. Okay. So, let's look at the topology now. As we get this, you can feel right in there, it's very slight, but there's this motion. As he smiles, it comes up a little bit. And it's reacting with the mouth corner. It's actually connected now. It's very slight, but honestly, we don't need that much in there. I could make it a little bit bigger if I wanted to. But we have full control. So with that, the next thing I can do, I've got this animation in place. Let's just offset it 1 frame. So what that's going to do is create the feeling of fleshiness where the mouth starts to push and then the cheek gets affected instead of them all being moved together. I copied the translate Y from the translate Y of the corner of the mouth. Now it's not going to be perfect because keep in mind that we're also moving the mouth up and down with this control. So this is going to affect quite a bit too. But we still get that nice connection in there. Okay. Let's keep going. Now we can do all sorts of different things with this. I could even copy, like, let's see if we'll actually need this. The Z curve here. What does this do? I don't think I'll need that one. What dailies am I running? I'm doing the first Thursdailies. So for anyone who doesn't know, Thursdailies are Q&A, a type of Q&A in Animation Mentor where you can get your work looked at. It's really, I enjoy it a lot. I got to look at a lot of people's work this week and then just every week. It's so much fun to see everyone's progress through the terms. Okay, so let's do the next cheek control. So once again, mouth corner. Let's take the translate X, edit, copy, take that, translate X, or let's actually take all my keys here, boop, delete, translate X, edit, paste. And I'm going to do both at the same time here. Translate Y. Actually, no, one at a time. That way we don't get lost on what we have to fix. So region control, lowest point. Ugh, horrible. Bring that back up. Right around there-ish. Highest point. Let's go to it. Bring that back down. So somewhere around here should be pretty good. And now we get that little bit of connection in there. It doesn't have to be much. Like, honestly, you can choose how much of a connection you want to have in those. It could be very slight. It can be really like one-to-one connection in there. And this is what I like about this. There's a few different ways you can do this in a, what would be the right word? Procedural way, I guess you could say, where the all you have to do is move the mouth corner and then it'll affect and move things for you. I'm typically not a fan of that method, typically, simply because it takes away control from you as the animator. I personally like to push this myself, and if I have to make a tweak, I have that control, typically, not all the time. So with all of this, let's take this curve here. We'll offset 1 frame. Boop. There we go. We now have the cheeks animated. Is it going to make a huge difference? No. But it adds fleshiness to the face. It just creates that connection with the rest of the animation. Okay. And you can do this in all sorts of interesting ways. So, for example, the jaw opening. When you open your jaw, your nostrils will get affected. So your nostrils will tend to narrow as your jaw opens. Also, as you open your jaw, your nose bobs up and down. So it kind of does this as you open your mouth. I could do that. I can take the jaw control. So I'm looking for the rotate X. That's the main jaw rotation. Let's copy that. And I'm going to take my nose control here. I'm going to paste that on either the rotate X or the translate Y. You can do one or the other. In this case, for this rig, I'm going to do the rotate X. And actually, I might do a little bit of both. Let's see how we can make it look. So let's start with the rotate X, paste it. And what's going to happen here is most likely that nose is going to wiggle in a horrible, horrible way. Like right here, that nose is just cracking downwards. It looks like someone punched him in the face. So once again, highest point. Let's lower that to an area where we can feel it move, but it's not going to look like his nose is breaking. As his jaw is closed, let's kind of bring that back to a normal level right there. Okay. So now, as his jaw opens, we get this slight rotation of the nose. Ever so slightly. To scale the whole curve, I'm using the region tool right here in the graph editor. It's very nice when you have to adjust things by the lowest and highest points. Now I'm actually just going to copy this curve here that I already had from the rotate X and paste it onto the translate X of the nose. Or sorry, not translate X, translate Y. That's the curve I want. So the up and down of the nose, not the side to side of the nose. Paste that. And we're going to get this, which is going to be horrifying. So what's happening here is as the nose is, or as you open your mouth, your nose actually gets dragged a little bit. Now the problem here, as we can see, is twofold. One, as he opens his jaw, his nose is actually getting pushed upwards. It should be dragged down. So my curve is the wrong way. To solve this, I'll just take my curve, go to Edit, Scale, open up the options, and make sure that the value is set to -1, and that'll flip the entire curve. Yay! Kind of. The nose is moving way too much. So once again, just scale this down, and this is going to be super tiny. Scale this down to just a small amount. Right in there. So let's see. How far do I want to go with this? Is that going to be enough? Yeah, we'll go with that for now. So basically, we get just a little bit of up and down on that nose now, as well as the rotation. And now what I can do is take both of those curves, and I'm going to offset them. But this time I'm going to offset one curve by 1 frame. So that's going to be the translation. And then the rotation, I'm going to offset by another frame, 2 frames. What that's going to give me is a little overlap on the nose. Super tiny. No one will ever see it, but they'll feel it. It's going to connect that nose to the mouth and keep things feeling fleshy versus just having kind of a solid nose that doesn't get affected. Now, with that said, this rig actually does have a lot of really good kind of connection to the nose already. So as you can see, if I move this, the nose is moving with it. This is just kind of adding on top. If you have a rig that doesn't have these connections built in, this kind of stuff makes a huge difference. This is what's going to really get that whole nose or any structure of the face feeling like it's actually part of the face. Now, other things that are affected by the jaw. So let's take the rotate X of the jaw, copy that again. Other things that are affected by that are the ears. So as we open our jaw, specifically when we open our ear or open our mouth super wide, our ears are affected, which is, if you think about it, your jaw muscles, the masseter muscles right here, they're right next to the ear, right there. So if we really push that, the ear will get affected. And usually it'll get kind of pulled down a little bit. as you open your mouth. So I'm going to take my translate Y of the ear and paste that curve. Now, once again, we're probably going to have this backwards. So as it goes, as the jaw opens up, the ear goes, or as the jaw opens, the ear goes up instead of down. So let's flip the curve and then scale it. So one thing with this that I will have to do a little differently is that the motion of the ear is not always there. It only really happens on larger jaw motions. Now, because of the way I'm going to scale this, it's not going to be a huge thing. But what I can do to kind of improve things for myself is just remove some of the animation on the ear in sections that kind of have minor jaw motions. So for example, like this first jaw motion right here, it's just the jaw relaxing. The ear is not going to change that much right there. So I can just take that and probably zero out everything that's not a major jaw motion. Something like that. And then even at the end here, the ear can reset a little bit more. So zero that out and then ease. So I'm using my existing curve this time to make a new curve that I can use to build in this connected animation on the face. So it's not just copying and offsetting. You can do all sorts of things. Okay, so let's take this new curve now. And if I wanted to, just for the heck of it, I could add this onto my rotate, in this case Y as well, which is going to be the ear flap motion. Just to kind of have a little bit, as it's getting pulled down, it's not just kind of shifting straight up and down. It's kind of got a little bit of extra motion. I could even add a little bit of rotate Z here if I wanted to, even a little bit of rotate X. We can go as far as we want. So let's kind of see how that looks. It's going to be a little weird, but take our rotate Y, paste that new curve, and then take our rotate Z, same thing, paste that animation. Okay, let's see how it feels when we get to this point. The other ear, honestly, I don't have to do because we don't see it when the jaw opens. So you're not going to really notice anything here because it's moving at the same time. But let's actually take this curve here, the rotate Z, and I'm just going to scale it. And we'll see how much it's actually moving. Yeah, barely anything. Let's move that just a little bit. So I'm going for my lowest point here. I'm just moving it until we can see some change. Just a tiny little change right there. When we're seeing it in motion, you'll never notice it, but you'll feel it. So here, I want to actually rotate that inwards. So as he smiles and opens his mouth, we feel that ear kind of pulled in towards his head. Just a little bit. Like that. Okay. So we've got all of our curves here. Let's just offset them. So if I kind of imagine the way the ear would get pulled, the first thing that would probably happen is probably going to be the translations and then the rotations offset afterwards. So I'm just going to offset each one by 1 frame. Something like that. And what this is going to give me is just this kind of complex ear motion that is tied to the jaw. Now it might be a little too much here. We might start noticing something. But see. I'm looking at my large screen right now to see if I can see anything. I think that works pretty well for now. Now, once I have this in place, I can just copy it onto the other ear. Because we can't see the other ear, I don't have to worry about it. So there's really no point. If I wanted to be really like specific and just kind of a completionist about it, I could do that. But really don't need to worry. Now, what else does the jaw motion have? When you open your jaw really wide and you kind of get excited, when you do that, it affects your neck muscles. This rig, which I love, has the sternocleidomastoids. Those are the muscles that run down here. And when you kind of tense up, that's those muscles that you feel right there. Or when you turn your head, you feel those coming through. So I have some options. So when you're doing this, if I turn my head, those sternocleidomastoids are affected by your head angle. I've got this big turn here on the character. Wouldn't it be cool if the rotation of the head affected those muscles? So as he turns his head, for example, we get, let's see, the left one to activate a little bit. And you get that muscle pulling the head. Because that's what, when you turn your head, it's not just your head spinning. It's these muscles that are pulling and causing the head to turn. If I pull this way, that's that muscle here compressing. So if I have his head turn, I could, in essence, use these to create a connected feeling and have it affected by his actual motions. Let's do that. Let's take my rotate Y of the head, copy that, and I'm going to paste it on both of these curves. So I'm actually going to do one at a time. Let's start with the left one because it's the most visible for us. So take this, paste, and we're going to scale this down quite a bit. So right now what happens is as he turns his head, and we get this kind of big turn here, right there, you can feel that neck muscle activating. So I've got two things I need to do. First, I need to find the default pose. Is this a newly released rig? Yes, it was released a few months ago now. It's the Apollo rig. If you do a search for Apollo rig, I think I've got it here. You can get him. It also comes in a bundle with the Artemis rig, which is also a really good rig and probably the next rig I'm going to be using. Here's the link. Would you use blend shapes that the rig doesn't have? Yes, I actually did a demo a while back on how to create blend shapes exactly for that, and to actually go a little bit deeper is to get the extra tendons and stuff in the neck, and even like the sneer and everything when you want to really push a pose. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to find the kind of reset of the head here, right around there. And I'm just going to scale this down. Now I'm not going to use the region tool because the problem with the region tool is it's going to offset my center. I want to scale from the 0 point here. Bring things in. So basically, as he turns his head, I want that to activate. What's the maximum it activates? 10. Okay. So I'm just going to scale this up until it reaches 10. Around there. So now we get that activation of that muscle with the head turn. Right in there. Ta-da! Now I can take this. Let's copy this curve. The new one. Paste it on the right side. and then flip it. Because we want both sides to activate at different times. So now, on this side, we get that activation. As he turns his head, we get the activation on the other, right in there. It's very subtle. It's hard to see, but it's in there. As he turns his head, you can see that side is relaxed now. It's very slight, but it's in there. And it's connected to the head motion. So let's take that and we'll offset that one frame. I like to offset things. It just kind of makes things feel like they're not one-to-one related. Okay. What else can we do? Like, honestly, you can just keep doing this all day. There's no real end to it. Now, one thing I would love to do is exaggerate the jaw motion of the face. And with this rig, there is a special control here, right there. The AM rigs have this, a lot of good rigs have this control, which is the facial stretch control. If you use this, you can see how much life that adds to the face in here. It just pushes everything even further. I want to use that a little bit. Now, the way I want to use this, I could animate and try to tie it all in together, or I can use some of the motion I've already done. So for example, the squash and stretch of the face is typically tied into the jaw motion. So I can take the translate Y here and basically just find my jaw motion. So my rotate X of the jaw. I'm going to copy that, paste it on the translate Y over here. Boop. And oh, the horrors. It's going the wrong way for one. So edit scale, it flipped it. Oh my God, no. What horrors have we created? Let's just bring this down. And I'm just gonna, once again, go to the lowest point, bring it down to how exaggerated do I want that stretch to be? Let's go around there. Just a little bit stretched. Let's find the highest point. That's going to be right at the beginning here. Oh, a little bit too squashed. Let's bring that back down. So this is default around here. Let's squish that up just a little bit. So we kind of get a little bit more compression. We feel that push in there. Now what this should do is really give us some nice squash and stretch on that jaw. We're not going to really feel it too much overall, honestly, but that's okay. It's just adding that extra little bit. And that's what I want. A copy from the rotation of the jaw. So I'm copying the rotation of the jaw onto the squash and stretch control of the face. Now, we've got some side to side in here that we can add in. Well, this would be great to tie into one of two things. We could tie it into the side to side of the mouth here. This way, as the mouth kind of compresses in, let's see, do I have a good example? Like right here, as the mouth is to the side, it would give us, where is that control? It's in his hand, right here. It would kind of push that along with, or I could copy the rotation of the jaw. So as the jaw kind of rolls out here, we get that kind of rotation through there. We can get a little bit of that motion in there. We can get this. Honestly, one or the other, or we could do a mixture of both. There's nothing that stops us from kind of implementing a little bit of both. Now, I kind of want to exaggerate the jaw motion because that's kind of the biggest part of this. So I'm going to use this first. Now, that rotation is specifically the rotate Z of the mouth here. That. I could also use a little bit of the translate, I believe. No, I didn't use translate X. I tried it and didn't work out. So let's take this, edit, copy onto that control. This is going to be the translate X. Paste. Oh no. What have we done? So same thing. Find your most extreme point. Scale it down. Find your most extreme point. Scale it down. So we just get a little bit. You can see how that's pushing that line of action there. Just a tiny bit. If we were to take it out completely, it would go there. We still have a line of action. We're just enhancing it. And that's what it is. We're not using this as a kind of catch all that will fix our animation and fix everything that we forgot to add in. We're using it as a way to enhance what we already have. Make it just a little bit more interesting. Okay. Like that. Okay, well, we've got that. What else can we do? Well, squash and stretch mostly happens in the lower face, but we also have this control. Ooh, squash and stretch up here. Typically, the skull doesn't squash and stretch. It's skull, it's bone. But this is animation. We can exaggerate that. Now, what control would work pretty well with that? Well, the eyebrows. The eyebrows are the kind of squash and stretch of the upper half of the face. It's what goes up and what comes down. So I can use my eyebrow animation as a guide. Now in this shot, I'm lucky because one of the eyebrows is the leading force. The screen right eyebrow is pretty much the one that does most of the motions. So I can take that. I'm going to just take my translate Y, copy that. And good. I should actually save. I hit the wrong hotkey there. So edit, copy. Take this control, translate Y, the up and down, edit, paste. There we go. Now, let's see what we've got. We get this. Now it's a little too connected. Let's actually show the offset. So I'll offset this probably 1 frame. So now we get a little bit of an offset in here. But you can see how that kind of pushes the expressions a little bit. Makes them a little bit bigger. Probably too big in this case. Although honestly, if I was going for something cartoony, definitely isn't terrible. For what I'm doing, it's definitely out of place. So let's once again bring that down. So another way you can do this is just bring that back down to the 0 point right there, and then bring it up, as I'm still at the highest point, bring it up to where you feel is a good squash and stretch. So I'm going to go too far and bring it back down. Maybe right around here. That feels pretty good. Go to the lowest point. Revert it. And then bring it down just a little bit. Okay. Somewhere around there. There we go. I can actually bring this back down. Maybe around there. Yeah, this feels a little high. Looking at it from my other view, it's just kind of a little bit overstretching. Okay. So we've got that. Now I could even add a little bit of translate on this as well. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to. There's really no point to it on this because I'm not going too cartoony. For that, I might animate myself because I don't want it to follow the jaw motion. The jaw is moving way too much for the top of the skull. And really what I would be using it for is to help enhance the line of action. So for example here, we'll just kind of push that a little bit more this way. And let's actually, I'll show you how I would block this out. I would just go at the beginning and find my key moments, just like I would with normal blocking. So let's look at our translate X, zero that out, or remove that. You get into the next big line of action moment right here. So push that a little bit more right there. Find the next moment. Here the face kind of maybe pushes a little further. A little. Stays there. This is going to be the biggest moment. Go a little further. And then it resets. Right around here somewhere. Very end, we can bring it back down just a little bit. Okay, so I've kind of got my big moments in here. And Tara, thank you so much for the reminder. I always forget. So, with that in place, I can just create my holds. So, this will hold pretty much until the brow starts moving up. So, right around there. Oops. There. Then it'll change through here. This is going to have a little bit more of a change there. Once again, I'm looking at the brow as kind of the brow change and emotional change as my indication of how long to hold this. Then this will hold a little bit till probably frame 48. Change. That can kind of morph through there. And the end will hold probably 67. Okay, so something like that. Is it perfect? No, it's very stepped. But I can refine it later. But essentially, I've got this nice little extra motion and extra squash and stretch throughout my whole shot now. At this point, I would just go through and start refining some curves. So for example, let's ease that a little bit more. Let's make sure this doesn't just freeze completely. Let's ease that. So just kind of go through, refine. I can do this kind of in my own time. And hey, Sir Wade! Thank you so much for the sub! These 15 months. Hey, Vibes! How's it going? Hope you're doing well? Yes, Aquatic Ambience, it's so good. If ever anyone's looked into the story of Aquatic Ambience, I forget which YouTube video it is. Just go on YouTube and look for, I believe it's Aquatic Ambience, like how it was made or something like that. It is so interesting. And it's amazing that it got made at all. Just the amount of technological know-how that they had to use to get it to actually be a song. It's It's amazing how they did music back then on those old games. It was all put in by hand on a big spreadsheet. It's crazy. But let's see here. I think we've got most of the connections that we could do here in place. Let's turn that off here. So is it perfect? No. There's a lot more that I can go in and refine. If I was doing this for my own purposes, I would probably go in here and be a little bit more thorough on how I clean certain parts up or not. But it's really just this process of looking at how you want things to connect and putting it in. Like what we did with the eyes. Making sure that the eye darts, which I actually missed one right here. So you can see this eye dart right there is feeling a little disconnected. Not hard to connect it back. So I'm just going to take my lower lids right here. The eye dart is happening from 86, or sorry, 67, 86 to 68. So on 68, I'm just going to connect those together a little bit. Take that lower lid, make sure that it moves with the eyes. Take that upper lid, same thing. As that eye darts upwards, that upper lid should open up just a little bit as well. Just like that. And then from there, I'm just going to take all of these, 68, set a key on everything, and then copy that to the end. There we go. And it's a small change, but it just connects everything together in a nice way. Okay. Let's see. What else can I do here? Looking at the full screen thing. Well, at this point, this is where you look back at your notes. So we did the facial connection. Let's say we've been doing this for a while and we're not sure if what we have works, if maybe we're missing something. Well, it's not a bad thing to just go, okay, I did a good chunk. Let's call that done for now, and we'll revisit this. I'm not crossing this off. I'm just marking this as done for now. Once I play Blast, I can look at it and see if I'm missing anything. Not a bad thing to do. So, next thing, we've got the shoulder hitch right around frame 63. So, I'm just going to go through there. We'll quickly try to fix that. So, essentially what's happening is, in the animation, I had this kind of little pause in the shoulders before they drop right here. And it's just not working. I was watching the animation and it just feels like the shoulders are popping. So I'm just going to remove it. Keep it simple. Don't need a little bounce in there. That's pretty much it. Right there. Whoop. Done. That's all there was to it. Keep those shoulders nice and simple. Well. That was quick. Okay. So, next up, improve the breath. So, this was right at the beginning of our shot. We've kind of got this breath here. And what I want to do is I want to use the actual breath controls on this rig. I've kind of built in the breath using the rotations of the spine, the shoulders, the head, all of the main body parts. Now we're ready to actually use the actual breath controls. If your rig doesn't have this, you can either scale the chest, you can do all sorts of things for that. So in this case, what I want is to add that kind of inflation of the chest. I don't really need shoulder in here because I've animated the shoulders myself for the breath. And we can kind of add a belly breath as well if we wanted to. I think for this character, I want a little bit more chest. So, as he breathes in, we'll find the moment where he's kind of got the most air into his lungs, which is probably going to be just the moment that his shoulders start coming down. So I want to lead with the shoulders. I'm going to fill in the chest there. Let's see, I don't know how far I should go with this, but we'll kind of bring it out there. So that's going to be the moment that he has the most breath. As he breathes in, is going to be probably starting right from the start here. Probably leading a little bit with the chest versus the shoulders. So we're going to get this quick inhale of breath that then eases in. So something like that. So you can see how the chest is leading, shoulders come up, and then at the end here, I want the shoulders to start leading down, and that's when the breath exhales. Let's find where the shoulders stop, probably around there. Ease that in. I'm going to overshoot so that he loses oxygen, like his chest compresses, and then we kind of get a little bit of a, you can almost say a secondary breath in there. So something like that. Now let's actually set a key here and just ease that out just a little bit more. Basically what I'm doing here is just easing the curve so that I'm not getting this kind of boring, straight ease in, ease out that Maya would give me. Okay. Kind of starts a little fast there. Let's ease that out. Just a tiny bit. Something more like that. There we go. There's that breath. Now, what I can also do, let's copy this, and I'm going to paste it on the belly breath. So now, as he breathes in, we also get a little bit of stomach expansion. Just a little bit. I'm going to offset it maybe 2 frames. No, that feels weird. Maybe just 1 frame. It feels weird that the... Well, actually, let's do it this way. I'm going to offset it 2 frames at the beginning, but then here I'm going to keep it in line, or maybe offset it 1 frame the other way. So it kind of starts with the stomach, then the chest. So it's chest, then stomach, stomach, then chest. And with this curve, I'm just going to make it much smaller. Oops, make sure I select the whole curve. So maybe about half what the other one was. So this way we get a connection between the chest and the stomach, but it's not just 1-to-1. And you can kind of feel that breath in there, in the stomach. Just like that. There we go. Now, the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to add a breath right in here. As he comes up, let's go back to the chest breath here. I wanted to kind of have him take in a breath as he's about to say hello. So I want to feel that chest breathing in here. Something like that. Then as he starts to say hi, it would deflate. So it would be probably deflated about there-ish. We'll go 60. And it'd hold the breath probably around 53. So we'll have that deflation happen right through here. So he starts to say hi, and that's, as he's saying the words, that's what causes him to lose his breath. So let's start bringing that up here a little bit more. Increase that breath. Ease in at the peak. I'm just reusing other keys right now, just because it's going to be easier to get that to work in together. I think I can make this a little faster there. Then overshoot just a little. Okay. There we go. Now, if I wanted to, I could copy that over. Let's just copy this section here onto the belly right there. Same thing as before. Offset 1 frame. Offset 1 frame. We get a little bit of that stomach in place. A little bit. And then I'm just going to try on the shoulders. I'm curious. So the shoulders would actually lead the action, or no, they're going to, same thing as before. They're going to be delayed at the beginning, but then lead the action down. So let's see how that kind of feels. Yeah, not a huge fan. Might just be that they're too high. Part of this is that I already built in my own shoulder animation, so it doesn't really need this extra. Okay, we'll kind of use that for now. There we go. So we've got another breath. There we go. Now, if I wanted to, I could probably add in another breath here at the beginning or somewhere in the middle. It's not really necessary, honestly. If I wanted to, an easy way to do it would be to just take what I have right here. Let me actually add one more key, just because I want to ease that a little bit. I can take what I have here. Let's copy it, and we'll just do the chest. And this time, when I go into my paste settings, I'm going to go, let's see, time range current. I'm just going to paste that in there. Boop. And make sure. Interesting. That's why. Getting rid of all my other keys. Keys override. No, that's not what I want. I guess let's just insert them, and then I'll retime this. So I'll take this, I'll buffer the curve. This way I can see where it was before. Paste. And now I can retime my curve properly. So first of all, I'm going to make this breath just a little bit shorter. Let's retime that. Make it much smaller. So take all that, scale it way down. Gonna be a little micro breath. And then just retime it. Okay, grab this. Let's move it back into place. I don't even know if I'm going to keep this, honestly. We'll just see how it feels. Yeah, we'll keep it for now. If it looks out of place, we can just remove it or tweak it. There we go. So, looking at our notes. Well, improve breath, got it. Add breath on happy moment, got it. Yay! So I actually got pretty much everything here. The last thing is going to be the hands. Now, this I'm probably going to save for tomorrow, just because I want to show a specific way that I'm going to use to redo the hand wave. The hand itself, the wave, feels a little slow and kind of meh. I also might do a constraint system on the chin versus the hand, just to kind of show how I would do that. We'll see if I need it. But I want to have more time to do that just in case we need it. So that's going to be the goal for tomorrow's stream. For now, let's actually see if what we did ruined our animation, which is always the case, or I shouldn't say always the case, always a possibility. That's the words I'm looking for. When you're doing shots like this and you're kind of making these improvements, there's always a chance that one of these improvements didn't work at all. Maybe the eye darts are in the totally wrong place. Maybe as we were animating this, we just got like totally sidetracked and we did something just weird. That's always the case. If so, we'll mark it down and fix it. There's nothing wrong with that. Also keep in mind that we did a buffer curve on all of our curves at the beginning. So worst case scenario, I can just reset an entire curve, redo the blocking on that. There's nothing that we can't undo. And you should also be saving and versioning up so that if something goes wrong, you can always go back. You want to work smartly so that you're not constantly resetting things and losing work. Now, let's see. What have we got? Not bad. I feel like the stretch on the face is too much as he goes up. We're starting to get a little bit cartoony right in there. It's like right there. That's a little too big. We can tone that down. How's the breath feeling? Let's actually take a look at that. The breath feels much better. That first breath there, just feeling that chest expand and contract makes a big difference. Do we feel the second breath? Not really, but I don't really mind that. Do we feel the third breath? Yes, we do see it. Well, we feel it more than we see it, which is good. How are the neck muscles working? They work pretty well. I like how as he turns his head right here, you can feel that shift in the neck. Now, just to compare, make sure that we're not looking at something that doesn't actually exist. Yeah, you can... It's still kind of in there, but this is much more pronounced, especially when he gets over here. You're feeling that line right there on the neck. Okay. The eye darts, like I thought, they're not really reading just because of the distance. We're kind of getting this one little eye dart right here. You can kind of feel that one. I might retime it 1 frame. 1 or 2 frames earlier. It just kind of feels like it's getting lost. But honestly, there's not a huge change. That's polish. And especially polish from a distance, it's not going to be a big change. And this is where you have to be careful what your camera is when you're polishing. I could spend, like, we've done this polish for about 3 hours now. To be fair, it was a lot of explanation and talking through it, but that's 3 hours still. Are we seeing a huge difference? We see some, we feel some, and it's not that it was wasted, but could that time have been better spent? Potentially. You want to be very aware of what your audience will see in the end. If this was a super close-up of the face, those 3 hours that I spent are not nearly enough. I need to do more. I need to add more eye darts and connection and all of that. What I have here, perfectly fine. Like, adding extra little tiny details won't make a difference to the audience unless they're watching it on like an IMAX screen. So at this point, I have a choice. Do I go in there and keep refining all of those little facial details and really add the tiny niggly little bits? Or do I spend that time fixing something important, like the hands? And you have to ask yourself this on any assignment that you're doing. So for example, if you're in Animation Mentor or any animation school, you have a deadline. When you're working on your shot, what is the goal that you're supposed to be achieving? And is the audience going to see it? For example, I can't see the feet on this shot. I still have to animate them. I still have to make sure they work correctly, or else the audience will see something wrong with the legs. But do I have to spend time polishing every single toe? Not at all. No one sees it. Same thing with the tongue. We added a little bit of tongue animation, which you're not really seeing. You feel it a little bit. You kind of see it grow a little bit, which is good. But it's really not staying open that long. So do we need to spend another 30 minutes polishing that tongue animation? No. So be aware of that, of what your focus should be on. Now, just comparing the face, I do feel it's better. Essentially what's happening is it just feels fleshier, especially in the cheeks. We feel that compression, and specifically the silhouette change right here, which makes the character feel happier. The eyes feel happier. If we kind of look at the previous pose here, actually let's see if we can see this side by side. It's not going to be a huge difference because of the... There we go. Yeah, that's what I figured. Let's see if maybe vertical will be better. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. And let's see, can I zoom in? If I zoom in on one, will it zoom in on both? This is one thing I love about this, is you can actually zoom. So let's see. What is my zoom tool? Video, zoom, zoom in. There we go. Yeah, it zooms in on both. Okay, now if I can pan. I don't use these too often. Okay, that's not panning for me. Where's my pan tool? Oh wait, I think. I always forget what the pan tool is on this. Toggle pan. What was the pan? I want to look at the face. Oh well, I can just zoom out a little bit. So if we look at the cheek, you can see the difference here. That cheekbone right there versus here. The eye right there, how it's just round, whereas this one, you're getting that compression. It's tiny. It's really tiny, but it's in there, and that's the important thing. When he kind of compresses his face here, watch that silhouette of the cheek here. As I scrub through, it doesn't change. We feel the brow, we feel the jaw, but that center part of the face doesn't move. Here, if you look at that center part right there, you feel that squash and stretch. You feel that the change in the cheek, the mass of the cheek. Big difference? No. Is it going to make the animation just a little bit more interesting? Yes. So that is the goal here. It's not big changes that are going to be life altering, but the audience will feel it. And the same thing will be when we get to the hand polish. The hand poses are not going to change much, but one thing we're going to be changing a lot is the way the hand just kind of pops out right there. That's something we're definitely going to be tweaking. So polish is fantastic, and you can go all, like, we could just keep going and going with this, but you have to choose when to stop. If we don't, we could just be working on this forever. So I guess with that, we can probably call it here. Now, a few things like we'll have to change later. I'm probably going to tone down the stretch on the face. We'll see. I'm going to give it some time before I commit to that, because I want to take a step back, see how weird it looks. It might actually just be me I'm so used to the previous animation that seeing it now is like, oh, it's not right. I want to get a fresh eye, so I'll take a break and then come back. But I might reduce that. Other than that, I think next phase is just the hands. And then we can call this animation done.